What is up, guys, gals, all my other Titan pals? This is Titan Esports Conqueror, Week 6. My name is Swifty. I'm joined back on the desk today by my dear friend, Freedom Potatoes. How you doing, Freedom Potatoes?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be back. You know, we had the break week. I think it's been actually a few weeks since I've been on broadcast at least. But we got a cool matchup today. Group C versus Group D, the cross group action with Laughing Clouds versus Omega Gaming Hydra.
Yep. Both teams doing well in their respective divisions. For our viewers today, this is a cross-divisional, cross-group match, if you will. So Omega Gaming Hydra currently sitting at third place in their division, Laughing Clouds in second. The standings, however, you know, as we've taken a look, are very, very close for basically like second through seventh in any given of these four divisions here in Titan Conqueror this split. So moving into the last 2 weeks of this season, it's still sort of anyone's game. I am not counting anyone out. These are very evenly matched teams, which makes for absolutely great gameplay. So I'm very excited to see that. In terms of what the stakes hold for tonight, Potatoes, fill us in on what you think the sort of outcomes are, things to look out for, and what this series means for the next week and playoffs moving forward.
So yeah, playoffs coming up. You know, this is week 6, and the groups are really close together right now. Like Omega Gaming Hydra currently in a 3-way tie for third place, and you know only those top 4 teams make it into playoffs. So if they lose here, that could make or break their playoff run. Laughing Clouds in a little bit safer of a spot, sitting at second in their group. But you know, again, if they don't win here, that could put them at jeopardy as well. So I think both of these teams are really going to be chasing that win right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally have to agree with you there. If I'm not mistaken, too, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that Group A and Group B are 8-team groups. I do believe these are Group C and Group D teams, respectively, Omega Gaming Hydra and Laughing Clouds, which I believe are only 7, which means that much smaller of a pool, right? 3 get knocked out, 4 teams from each division, respectively, make it to the round of 16 in playoffs here in Titan Conqueror. So when you have even less teams, right, competing for those spots, every spot becomes that much more valuable, right, in your division. So, you know, I think it's typical here in Titan Esports to just see really, really well-matched teams and games. There's so many leagues and so many teams that do compete across Titan Esports. So going into weeks, I'm sure you and I as filler in for our viewers, Potatoes and I have played together on comp teams for nearly 2 years now, maybe over actually. So, you know, we've come down to the wire. We've come down to tiebreakers more than once in this league. So I'm very excited for the last, week 6, week 7. Very excited to see what these teams bring out. Again, this is fearless. So, if this goes to 3, it's only that much more exciting. Before we head into draft, are there any standout players, any standout picks for you that you're looking for that we should remind viewers, to keep an eye out for tonight?
So I'll shout out our resident content creator, Prophet of Tears, who was trying to highlight the mid lane matchup as one to watch between Mockingbird and Professor. And for both teams, I believe these are their highest rated players respectively, so it makes sense. I think overall, Omega Gaming Hydra, just looking at that fancy little SEM stat site, has Omega Gaming favored in most roles, but the mid lane really, really close. So I think that's going to be, especially for Laughing Clouds, a lane that they're going to try to win through.
Gotcha. Okay. A matchup to be looking out for. It's funny in doing like a little brief, peek on who these players are, right? What champions They play a lot. I don't believe we've seen either of these two teams on any stream in Conqueror this split at least. And one thing I do notice is, correct me if I'm wrong, it appears both lanes are proficient in Lucian Nami. Bot lanes, that is.
That does seem to be the case. I mean, so actually, that is another player to highlight is Solo Mason joining Laughing Clouds. I believe that's a recent substitution just in this last week. So doesn't have any games played, bit more of a wild card, but has played in Conqueror before. Back in fall 2024, actually had like a very high individual player rating, and I believe made it pretty far in playoffs. I'm trying to remember. I think I casted Solo Mason in a series, but it has been a while. Like might have made
Yeah,
it to
I feel
finals
like
before. So
I think so. It's a name that I recognize for sure. Also, hi Toby.
so that might be a new point of strength that Laughing Clouds can try to utilize to win big in this series.
Awesome, and that's going to take us right into draft for this series tonight. On the note of Solo Mason, on the note of these bot lanes both being Lucian Nami, proficient players, right? I'm curious to see if that gets any prio. Typically, at least in my mind, seeing it on a red side pick as a response to, say, a B1 ADC, like a Lucian Nami R1, R2, so you can guarantee the combo there is very strong. However, in modern day League of Legends, I think some would argue, and maybe this is a talking point as we were discussing sort of draft here, that maybe Nami isn't actually the best pick with Lucian in the bot lane currently as it stands. I know that there's a big argument for Milio being the best Lucian sort of enchanter for that lane with burn damage and just the ability to apply pressure early in a lane, more so than Nami. But I'm curious to see if we're going to see Lucian, if we're going to see it early in Fearless Draft. People like to take power picks off the board early. People drafting into OVS frequently will take the Volibear if they have blue side, right? Game one into us. So I'm curious to see if that comes out first, but looks like before I can even get there, it's going to be banned by Omega Gaming Hydra for the third space.
Both of these teams' ADCs play some of that Lucian and Tristana, so it's interesting to see it banned away from the side of Omega as Trundle is picked up first. Yeah, that has been a high priority pick in professional play. We saw absolutely demolishing towers in the FlyQuest series yesterday. Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. All of our NA friends, absolutely heartbreaking. Have to agree. I was watching that live, part of a watch party. But I love Trundle. I've been a proponent of Trundle. I'm sure as some viewers who have watched me cast now for a while, I'm sure as you know, I think it's a very, very underrated champion. And like you said, has been seeing a lot more priority in professional play and less so as a response pick, typically, at least in the jungle, right? And in top lane, you could argue. We are going to see the R1, R2 being responded with jungle, right? I think they imagine, okay, if it is Trundle jungle, we are going to grab something that can match well into it. Stone Skin passive on Wukong does a pretty good job of matching Trundle's sort of heal. Not quite, all the way, but having that, the ultimate Cyclone for CC is just a sort of generalized good matchup into Trundle Wukong scale as well. But we're going to see ADCs and mids picked out. Being a mid laner yourself, Potatoes, talk to me about this matchup here. Picking Syndra, responded with Ahri.
This definitely a skill matchup. I think Ahri really thrives in those like 2v2, 3v3 skirmishes. Once you hit level 6 in particular, she can really synergize with the Wukong, who has, if he hits that ER onto someone, that's free setup for Ahri's charm, and can usually get a pick that's just going to win you the skirmish pretty much before it even really begins. On the other side, I think the mid jungle for Laughing Clouds offers a little bit more in the scaling department. I mean, Trundle really strong in the 1v1, and Syndra, if she gets to play her game, I think outscales Ahri, but always comes down to execution. Whether Ahri can find the flanks, because if Syndra's getting flanked, it's way harder to find those stuns, and she might find herself getting picked off first.
Yep, absolutely. We are going to, as part of the second phase bans here, see Laughing Clouds prioritize support bans, and they're going to actually answer the Gragas pick, which is, I guess, technically flexible between support top. It is most likely between top jungle, I'd imagine, right? Wukong is more of a top jungle, Gragas more of a top jungle. And for the last two blue picks from Laughing Clouds, we're seeing Poppy Braum. So now we know it's going to be a Braum Xayah lane. Poppy Trundle still absolutely flexible. We are getting a note actually that the sides are flipped for draft, so the teams are flipped. However, the picks are still the same. We'll clear that up as soon as we get a game. Nobody absolutely worry about it. But Karma is the last pick here. I think Karma is super freaking good.
I really like the Karma pick here. Karma Varus offers a ton of poke and get a ton of early priority around objectives, your team off to a early lead in the Dragon department. Like the Xayah Braum, lots of disengage, pretty safe in the team fights, but I don't think it has like a lot of inherent synergy, where Xayah kind of wants to like kite back, and like Braum sort of does the same thing, but I don't know, it doesn't strike me as like an on paper hard winning lane. So I'd expect to see Laughing Clouds pull ahead in the early game down bot.
Yeah, it's interesting to me looking just sort of identity-wise at both of these compositions. Tell me if you disagree, but when I look at both of these stacks of 5 champions, I see 2 teams that sort of have a lot of self-heal and are very comfortable fighting backwards, equally as comfortable maybe playing for picks, which to me, when you match 2 compositions in that sort of identity, you're bound to get a little bit of interesting gameplay, right? Somebody is going to have to, or inevitably going to be playing into a situation that their composition might not want to be playing directly into, right? I see obviously Chains of Corruption, Karma just having slows, AoE slows and roots, as well as knockups, disengages. Bomba from Gragas seems to me to be able to play backwards very, very well. And like you said, Xayah, with that ultimate, with Glacial, I believe it's Glacial Fisher from Braum, his ultimate, Poppy, Steadfast Presence, Trundle Pillar of Ice. Again, these are very, very good like self-peel zoning disengage items. So to me, one team's going to have to be playing into another, right? That's just how League of Legends fights starts. So I'm curious to see which team might actually have the edge here. And maybe part of it does lean into who's able to pull out of the early game with the gold lead, right? Like, how do these junglers and these laners match up in such a way that who's going to have a little bit of an advantage, maybe feel a little bit more comfortable stepping up into objectives? At least that's how, my brain's leaning me into the analysis of these 2 compositions.
Yeah. Something else I kind of think about is like, I think Laughing Clouds has a little bit less committal of an engage. Like they can play around poke, they can play around the Varus ultimate. Ari can ult in, but if she misses the charm, she can always back out. Whereas I think for the side of Omega, it's a little more binary. Once they're committed to a fight, it's a lot harder for them to just dash away with champions like the Syndra and the Poppy.
Sure.
But
heroic charge is a lot harder to get back out of, right? And Syndra having Scatter the Weak is great stun. This is a great pause of tension here. But we are getting into game. This is game 1. Titan Conqueror week 6. Omega Gaming Hydra versus Laughing Clouds. Very excited to see what happens.
Indeed. And looks like both teams just going to take a nice defensive 5-point start to the game here. Maybe
Beautiful
do a little dance. Yeah.
Look at that. Like both teams are just like, yep, we're gonna stand here. It's like before a rugby match, when they line up and they face each other and like play national anthems. I don't know if you watch rugby. If I'm the only rugby
I
guy.
do not can't say I've watched much rugby in my time. Maybe a highlight here and there or something, but it's yeah, but we are seeing the early vision get dropped. And actually, I think that ward was maybe meant to go over the wall. That's a little bit unusual of a place for it because it doesn't see the Raptors or the red.
Yeah, but it's also not next to the wall. Like normally, listen, I'm a jungler. I've missed that ward a billion times. It never sits that far away from wall if you miss it. I think that was just sort of this is as far as we're gonna get. This is where we're going to drop the ward. Unfortunately, it does not really see Raptors. Maybe it'll see the corner of the Raptors camp as we sort of get a little bit of vision here. We'll be able to see in a second. But what we're getting, regardless, either way, is Wukong, Poppy, both starting their topside camps, will be pathing down. Want to place priority, I guess, in the early game into these bottom lanes here.
I think, yeah, like I mentioned before, I'd expect Laughing Cloud's bot lane to pick up some early advantages here. And I think, notoriety on the Wukong, probably going to try to play to accelerate that. And Cruelty, if they anticipate that, is going to be looking to play counter gank and make that harder for Laughing Cloud to wield that early advantage. Wow. Big trade from Mockingbird in the mid lane.
Yeah, very big trade. It's going to get level 2 first and drop a lot of damage there onto Professor in the mid lane, which is a very cool name. We'll see if Professor can school Mockingbird in the means and methods of mid lane dominance. It doesn't look like it off that first trade though, but the pun was worth it.
That Ari level 1 can be really potent with that auto W electrocute proc or auto
Yeah.
W auto. It's pretty much free damage, especially into a Syndra. If you know what you're doing on the Ari, you can pretty much 100% guaranteed dodge the Syndra Q while getting that combo off thanks to that move speed. So it's yeah, pretty favorable to Ari on that level 1.
Sure. We are seeing a 6-camp clear, so a full clear from both of these junglers heading down to the bot side. No one looking to do 3 camps into an invade. We are in season 2025, ladies, gentlemen, guys, gals, other pals. So what that means is typically just full clearing is, you know, less risk, way less risk for your econ as a jungler. It looks like Wukong is a little bit ahead in the clear. Is going to opt for Gromp into blue. I don't know if that's really going to make much of a difference, but we do see priority heavily for the side of Laughing Clouds here in the bot lane for D-Shot and Solo Mason on the Varus Karma, which means that Poppy may have an easier gank angle, but that Tribe Rush, excuse me, is warded. We will see how this plays out. Syndra also leaning sort of towards the bottom half of mid lane into that river a little bit.
And interesting to know, it looks like Solo Mason is actually going to go for the like on hit or crit Varus here, not a full lethality build like we often see out of that pick, as Cruelty's looking down bot.
Ooh, Cruelty is looking down bot, is going to get that charge off onto Karma, is going to flash Q. Karma Root is out, Sun coming out on the Varus, but heal is popped, and that might be all she wrote for this gank. A little bit of Braum concussive or crushing blow. Is it crushing blow? No, that's Q on Wukong. Winter's Bite, thank you, Wukong. The dash in is going to be stopped by Poppy's steadfast presence. That's going to be all she wrote. A little bit of a counter gank there, but First Blood not coming out. April Fools. Got him. We like to keep you on our toes here in Titan Esports.
Well, it looked like it might come out for a second there. You know, Solo Mason was dropping very low, but the shield from Karma together with that heal and barrier, you know, a lot of summoner spells burned for the side of Laughing Cloud's bot lane. So ends up being the Poppy that gets the first gank off and kind of helping Omega Gaming's bot lane back into things in this early game. But Notoriety did pick up that crab, but it's also going to be Cruelty getting the other one back top side. So no huge advantage either way. In the jungle. Both teams dead even in gold at the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, the only sort of noticeable trades here is Chunky Monkey taken very low and on moment. Cruelty can't quite find the angle to look for anything more, is just going to walk it out, probably head back to that Gromp and sequence down bot side again. Dragon has spawned. It is past 5 minutes at this point. A little bit of trading mid as well. As I was going to say before, though, the only really noticeable trade here on that bot side gank and then eventual counter gank was summoners. We had only 2 summoners blown for the bottom lane as opposed to 3 for the bottom lane of Laughing Clouds, right? So, but notably, Cruelty does have Hex Flash, so is down that flash. You know, still has the utility of Hex Flash. It is a good summoner spell. Whereas Wukong still has the full flash, which, you know, just is better than a Hex Flash by definition, right? It's not slow, it's instantaneous. So that's probably the only noticeable difference. We'll see if that plays out at all in these next coming ganks and these next coming fights and skirmishes. We do have Dragon up, as well as, I believe, a little over 2 minutes now is the Grub spawn, and we will see how these teams are placing priority in these objectives early game.
And that Wukong should be getting close to level 6-0, which is going to be a big window for using that flash cooldown to capitalize on, you know, maybe Paneer having no flash down bot or the Poppy having no flash in the jungle. As might be a gank happening mid in a moment here. We see 3 members from Laughing Clouds hovering around there, but they might just be trying to set up priority for Dragon or something like that.
It looks like they are. Interestingly enough, Wukong channeling a back. I'm not sure what item Wukong has that makes this back worth it.
Looked like it was just the Ruby Crystal Longsword. So a little bit of extra combat stats. If there is a fighter on this Dragon, that could be a big difference maker because Poppy has not backed, I just noticed. Poppy's still sitting on the jungle starting item.
Poppy has not backed. Poppy went for the topside scuttle. It's just going to show up, flash the dominance of steadfast presence, that W, and then decide to back. I'm just going to have to tell you, Mr. Potatoes, I hate the pathing from both of these junglers. I don't know what's going on here. I totally understand Poppy wanting to not get double scuttled and moving up to the top side and then sequencing it directly into an extended sequence, right? Full clears top to bottom. At which point, Dragon is sort of there, but you do want to get a back off. So, you know, it's understandable to look for a play bot. I think they were ready for it. What I don't understand is, I guess, Wukong moving up to the top side and then almost just waiting for the camps to spawn, right? I think Wukong dropped a good 25 seconds of tempo here. That was a little unnecessary. Poppy's sort of doing the same thing on a gank that wasn't quite lookable in the first place. And now Dragon fight isn't going to happen, but we might get a gank on the mid lane. Just from the look of the minimap, it looks like Scatter the Weak did come out to at least push. That's a guess based on what I saw. But Dwango and Chain taken pretty low. But we also see Wukong getting engaged on sort of in the river here. We're going to see what happens in either one of these skirmishes. Looks like not too much. Okay, nothing crazy. Poppy is going to be able to secure the Scuttle Crab, right? Notoriety saying, yep, no thank you. I'm just going to go back to my Raptors. We do have Grubs and we do have Dragon fully spawned. Let's see how these teams respond.
Ooh, Mockingbird.
Oh, Professor getting chunked out low by the charm into half of the Q. The true damage not going to land, but going to get chunked. Ooh, a good Spirit Rush is going to stop Poppy from landing that stun, it looks like. But we do not have Dwango chained in a really bad spot as Cyclone is going to come out, is going to have to flash over the wall. Wukong is going to follow. Use that second charge of the Cyclone. He is getting whacked on. Let's see what's going to happen, but the heroic charge is going to keep Wukong knocked into the wall, as well as the knockup. First blood going over to the Gragas onto Trundle, but multiple members taken low, and there goes Syndra's ultimate. Professor is able to take the unleashed power out on to their jungler, the Bomba. Never forget the Bomba. We're going to lean over to skirmishing in the bot lane after a bit of a bloodbath up in the top half of the map. Both bot laners for Omega Gaming Hydra taken very low. And we were getting multiple skirmishes, and I'm talking very fast. But looks like D-Shot and Solimation aren't going to press their advantage anymore, at least for the immediate future.
And we are seeing Laughing Clouds now out to a bit of a gold lead. We'll see if they can convert that gold and tempo advantage they just generated into any major objective, because it's been several minutes since that dragon spawned and no one's had a chance to take it. And now Grubs are up, so whoever does the dragon, you know, they could get a cross-map play answered onto the Grubs. It's a little harder to guarantee both of those for yourself now that they've both spawned.
Yes, we are going to see Laughing Clouds remember that there is a dragon on the map and decide to take it. So they're going to start this with bot lane having absolutely no priority. It doesn't look like there's going to be much of a contest. Professor may try to look with Poppy on the side, but this is inevitably a 4v3 that you do not win. I think they understand this. Smite going to come down out of notoriety on the Wukong. First objective of the game secured for Laughing Clouds. Are we going to see Trundle just start the grub?
He's started them, but he's kind of just pulling them into a reset. Is he just farming those little baby grubs? Because now there's time.
They give 1 gold.
Yeah, that adds up. You know, they spawn a whole lot of those. But yeah, looks like Omega Gaming has rotated their support up here first, so those grubs probably will be secured to their side. And that those are those are really nice to have on the Trundle, because that is such a strong split push threat. So I think they'll be pretty happy with the trade if they are able to get all 3 of these, which it looks like they will. No real contest coming in from Laughing Cloud. And so the objective score is now 1-1.
Yep, 1-1, and like you said, Trundle really does like that. It's got a lead coming out onto Mockingbird, but to not much else. Braum is gonna have that dash, throw up that stand behind me, stop the REQ from doing any more damage. But we do have Pillar coming out, and Bomba through the heroic charge, so actually not gonna stop this gank potential, but Flash is gonna be used. Bomba used, Keeper's Verdict used, as well as Subjugate, I believe. But Solo Mason and Paneer now in a 1v1, gonna have to flash out. Braum is there to the rescue. And now we might just get a little bit of damage with the Root critically coming out. The Glacial Fissure used. Solo Mason is taken low, but Paneer doesn't really have the angle to get into the backline. The Blade Caller is just going to miss a very, very low Varus. Is the Q gonna matter? No, it is not. Karma looking for the damage here, but isn't quite going to get it. Both members of OGH very low, but Karma respecting is going to answer with the flash. Solo Mason a little too low to be comfortably taking the rest of this fight. No kills over for either team in the bot lane.
I don't know how Solo Mason ended up so deep in that 1v2, but D-Shot does eventually come through to the rescue, and at the end of it all is a little bit of a health advantage for the side of Laughing Cloud's bot lane. Yeah, it's real scrappy. The teams are not afraid to push the tempo, and Paneer almost taken out by that piercing arrow.
Oh, and then the hail of arrows almost doing the rest of the job there.
I think that was a really good sidestep by Solo Mason on the Blade Caller from Xayah near the end of that play. You know, not a single one of the feathers connecting after that ult was used, which, yeah, saves the Varus's life.
Absolutely. Does save Varus' life. Varus critically did not have flash at that point, I believe. So, you know, it was sidestep or get nuked. And, you know, is able to have the movement, the skillful movement enough to save their own life there. Dwango and Chain positioning right outside of turret range. I think threatening that pillar to stop back. Gragas ain't having it. Is going to decide to stay in lane, but Mockingbird taken very low, but does have the sort of ability advantage, it looks like, in this fight here. Ooh! The orb is going to get dropped. Charm is going to land as well as Scout of the Week. Let's see what happens. Spirit Rush being used. Going to flash over. Also going to flash the Q. Both flashes, both ultimates expended? Yes, it looks like it. Both ultimates were expended by mid laners. It looks like Professor had expended the Unleash power very, very early in that fight. Now, support's coming in to just do what supports do. A little bit of protect, a little bit of play whack-a-mole with each other. I don't know if this is going to amount to anything, guys, but again, very close fight for laners for both teams. Nobody ends up dying, Potatoes.
I love the use of the dashes and flashes around the skill shots, keeping us on our toes as to who was going to win that. That was very close. I feel like Mockingbird was a pixel away from death. But
Notoriety might be a pixel away from death. He's going to have to use the Cyclone sort of defensively as there are 3 members in the jungle here. But Trundle critically attacking the clone, not the real Wukong, as now they realize they might be in a bad spot. Laughing Clouds has turned this into a 4v3, but Professor is on the lines here. Scout of the Week going to push Wukong out of the way, not over the wall. Professor keeping the team alive. Again, no kills to either team, and this game is still only 300. Oh, it looks like only 200 or 300 gold difference, yeah.
Yeah, that gold gap has closed considerably, and these Sams are not afraid to fight, get up in each other's faces, invading in the jungle. But yeah, not surprisingly little coming out of it, considering the aggression that we are seeing.
Yeah, surprisingly little, but at some point, something just got to break, right? League of Legends is never a 0-0 game for too long. Something's going to happen. We just got to figure out when it is. One thing I'm noticing here, as a lot of rotational movement is happening out of D-Shot as well as Red v Blue, both support players, is that Varus and Xayah are being left alone a lot in these side lanes, and I inevitably favor Varus in these situations. The poke out of the Q is always going to do work into a Xayah, but Xayah doesn't have a lot of tools to be able to answer. As Chunky Monkey and Dwango just gonna whack on each other, just an AP bruiser and an AD bruiser, just have it at it up in the top lane. But we do see the CS advantage, going back to my original point, for Laughing Cloud, Solo Mason on the Varus in the bot lane. We're getting a little bit of a Scout of the Week is going to land on the 2 members, but not going to amount to much else, as Omega Gaming Hydra is going to secure the smite on the Dragon. Spirit Rush used after steadfast presence, but the stun is not going to land to the wall, but from passive is going to have to use Flash, and Chains of Corruption misses Solo Mason. You are in a bad spot, and that is going to be him dead, but the trade is returned onto the support for Omega Gaming Hydra, and critically, the feats of strength, first 3 kills are going over to Laughing Clouds, but a 1-for-1 trade of members, ADC for support in that Dragon skirmish.
And the Ocean Dragon picked up by Omega Gaming Hydra as well. They're going to be pretty happy with that into this Varus, who, even though he's not building lethality, still does a good amount of poke damage. And if they can play the tempo right, they might look for this Herald, but yeah, ultimately it seems like that was just the Omega Gaming Hydra being first to the Dragon and making it really tough for Laughing Clouds to walk in. So using those reset timers to their advantage and picking up an objective fight. Now, looks like the Herald will be traded.
Yep, and you know, I think this takes us back a little bit to the point I was making sort of in draft, in that I think both comps are pretty comfortable playing fights backwards, and maybe have not crazy good ways of primary engage. Notoriety on the Wukong, gonna pick up Herald. Just a little bit of warrior trickster out of there over the wall. But I don't know how comfortable both teams are with being primary engaged, right? Outside of sort of like Wukong, Cyclone, there aren't like a lot of clear ways to initiate a straight up 5-on-5, like walk at each other fight. And maybe outside of Heroic Charge, again, not like super clean ways, right? Like there is no Malphite ult to start these fights. But, Dwango and Chain critically in a really bad spot here. It's going to be taken very low very quickly. Cyclone used, and that's going to be all she wrote. That is the 4th kill of the game, going over to the jungler for Laughing Clouds, and they now have a 4-kill-to-2 lead, as well as about 600 gold. Rift Herald is going to be used. Not going to quite take out the tower. Let's see if it finishes off, but critically, Bomba is not up for the Gragas. Doesn't matter. Scatter the, excuse me, not scatter the loop. Unleash power going to be used to pick up that kill, and a kill in response over for their jungler is going to happen. But on the bot side of the map, Red v Blue taken very low. Glacial Fissure into Flash is going to have to be used as Chains of Corruption took Red v Blue very, very low there, but is going to get out with their life. Karma, however, really pressing the aggression, is going to have to use their Flash. You got to question that level of aggression there with Varus not quite in position, nor with the abilities to really follow up on that sort of positioning.
And after all that, it's going to be the feats secured, I believe, for Laughing Clouds. They had those 3 kills, and they just got the first turret up there as well. So that's going to be pretty nice for them, you know, being able to get a little extra tenacity for the pick potential that Omega Gaming has, or just make themselves tankier in general.
Yep, definitely a win in the books, and you take those any day of the week. However, we are still in about like a 600, 700 gold difference in favor of Laughing Clouds this game. Still 1 dragon to 1 dragon. By no means, a runaway game at all here. Still looks like anybody's game here. The lanes seem very, very well matched in this series. Sort of across the board here, which is very impressive, right? Not a lot of the times, but, you can often see pretty lopsided matches, but on different areas of the map, which leads to interesting games nonetheless. But definitely a refreshing thing to see. So many players seem very, very equally matched in terms of, skill with lane opponent here. Very close game, Potatoes.
I've got to agree. I mean, you do see a pretty large gold lead in mid lane. That's actually more than I was expecting. That's 1,400 gold in favor of the Syndra. I mean, you've got the first strike. She's got 1 extra kill and a bit of a farm lead. So it's not entirely surprising. And that's actually amounting to almost a full item, it looks like. That's 2 items on the Syndra, while Ari is still working on what I assume is going to be a Leandry second, going for a bit more of a tanky build here. So, yeah, definitely want to reset and get that completed if you're Arya. Oh, wow.
Kill.
Shot. A jump scare.
A jump scare kill. Yeah, are we getting the replay? We are getting the replay. Scatter the Week going to be used. Oh, with the added little piece of terrain, Heroic Charge doesn't even have to be re-angled to guarantee that stun. And they're just going to immediately pick up that kill. Unleash Power is going to be used. Chains of Corruption used very defensively, but Heroic Charge landing the stun. Scatter the Week going to follow up. Solanix take it very low, and Syndra is just going to be able to pick that up. Mockingbird, there is nothing you can do. And now we have a gold lead for the first time, I believe, in the game, at least, relatively, post early game 1 for Omega Gaming Hydra. We've been about like a few hundred gold down. And gold lead in favor of Laughing Clouds for the last maybe 8 minutes or so. But Omega Gaming Hydra slapping back. Looking for this mid tower as well, but Notoriety is in there with the Cyclone. Durango Unchained immediately taking incredibly low. However, Zaya is going to answer with the turret, but Mockingbird is going to land the charm, but the second charge of Cyclone is going to be used. There is Featherstorm. Is the Blade Caller going to be used? Yes, it is. After the flash, and Braum is going to walk her out. Notoriety just not quite having the damage. Stun is not going to land Scatter the Week, nor is the charm right before it. Is anything going to happen on the back end of this fight? Are we going to take the wins, take the losses? Looks like we are. It is 5 kills to 5, but noticeably, Dragon is up as Notoriety is going to start it.
Dragon is up, but there's no ult for the Wukong, Ari, or Varus. And those are pretty key abilities if Laughing Clouds is going to take a fight here. However, they have the numbers advantage, and it looks like Omega Gaming is kind of just scared to walk up. Maybe going to look for a cheeky steal with the Syndra. She can do a lot of burst damage to these objectives over the wall, but that's going to be a Dragon number 2 claimed for the side of Laughing Clouds.
Yeah, it's still a very, very close game. It still looks to be, if I'm not mistaken, it's like about 1,000. Yeah, almost 1,000 gold. Still in favor of Omega Gaming Hydra. I want to bring it back to a point you just made before all of that fighting happened in the build and the itemization between these two. But I may not be able to make my point. Cruelty looking in with that steadfast press movement speed. But Zaya is going to land a lot of feathers, but it's not going to mean anything. Chains of Corruption is going to slow down the rest of the team. Mockingbird not going to land the dash, but is going to land the charm. Braum taken very low, but nothing's going to amount to it. Poppy standing in the middle of the team is going to use Steadfast Presence to stop the Warrior Trickster, but not enough damage there on the backside of this fight. They don't have their critical member, it looks like. Professor here. Professor is on the bottom side of the map, and now Zaya is taken into an awful position. Cyclone going to secure that kill. So much of your gold, Omega, is on this Syndra. That is Blackfire Torch and Storm Surge, as well as a 7-stack Dark Seal. So much of your damage is on this Syndra. You gotta question, you know, the willingness to be taking sort of extended fights like that into a team with a Rod of Ages Ahri, a Wukong, a Gragas, you know, and a Karma who just inevitably favor a little bit longer team fights and longer engages.
Mockingbird walks up pretty far there using the Spirit Rush early, but that tanky build ensures that they get out alive. And yeah, at the end of it all, it's just the one kill over to the side of Laughing Clouds, but they do lose the bottom side turret and a decent amount of farm there. The Syndra up almost 50 CS in the mid lane now, approaching the death cap at pretty rapid speed, and that is when Syndra really starts to get scary. I'm not sure how many stacks she has right now, but yeah, once she has the passive fully stacked alongside the death cap, she can nuke pretty much anyone on that team. There's not a lot of magic resist built up on the side of Laughing Clouds.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario, I think, for the mid laners. Just what their scaling looks like relative to one another on top of what these itemizations are, right? I think Syndra inevitably, just with raw damage, outscales the Ahri, and Ahri has opted in response for, you know, a more defensive build. Dwango going to be put into a weird spot, is not quite going to get pinned up against that wall, is going to be able to walk that out, runs to the other side of the ice pillar. Cruelty on the Poppy, going to say, not my Trundle, and they're going to try and maintain vision control here. Cruelty noticeably starting up the Otacon while clearing vision. So they are going to know that this Otacon is started. Otacon does deal a lot of damage here.
Mockingbird going to respond with the teleport, and it looks like they're just going to be happy to bait that summoner spell out and back off the objective. Professor is waiting out of vision to throw out that Scatter the Weak on whoever goes to clear these wards. But no one's gonna take the bait, and yeah, now Omega Gaming kind of looks like they're just sitting in the river.
Oh, Red v Blue sort of deep into territory there. The Glacial Figure is going to be used after Scatter the Weak. That is a handful of members taken very low. Keeper's Verdict going to separate the rest of the team, but Wukong taking the Blast Cone out, knocked over, no kills going to be used. But noticeably, Glacial Fissure and Keeper's Verdict for Poppy and Braum, irrespectively, are going to both be used here, and they're going to start up the Otacon. However, ults are up, right? We have Chains of Corruption, we have Bomba, we have Cyclone up for the Wukong. They're going to look to sort of answer this. They are a little bit low notoriety, about half health, as this Otacon, excuse me, is going to be taking over about 4,000. Now it's time to pull the trigger, Wukong. Chains of Corruption being used. It's a smite fight, but Scatter the Weak takes it. Steadfast Presence going to be used. The Cyclone is going to be followed up with, there's a flash! Poppy going down, but Wukong's life is going to be traded for it. There's the Feather Storm, but 4 members taken incredibly low. Zaya's going to be taken to the Death Realm for it, but everybody is low. Kill's going to go in favor, 2 for 1 for the side of Laughing Clouds, but Scatter the Weak secured by the Professor on this Syndra, using Scatter the Weak.
That's exactly what I was talking about with that. Smite fight can actually go in favor of the Syndra and not the junglers a lot of the time. It was really close there. I think I saw it at like 1200 HP, and if the junglers have the smite,
7 was the last frame I think I saw.
Yeah, so someone must have smited, and then it's just Syndra Q or W or B that gets it.
Yeah, well, if you smite at 1200, then really any ability in the game can get it.
Braum's auto attack might be able to steal it at that HP if you're off by just a millisecond there. So yeah, and not exactly sure what the pedal score is. Looks like only 3 on the side of Laughing Clouds. Omega Gaming Hydra has probably considerably more after that Otacon take, and something that's been brought up a lot on the MSI broadcast is, you know, when you have a gold lead, like a lead of, it's probably about 20 petals, if I had to guess. I haven't seen the exact number, but that can amount to about 2,000 gold just in terms of the adaptive force and XP those petals give. So
yeah.
The gold lead deceptively in favor, actually, of Omega Gaming Hydra right now, as it's going to be fight around this dragon in a couple seconds, probably.
Oh, Cruelty going on to Chunky Monkey as dragon is being taken, and Cruelty not even going to try and contest. So that is 3rd dragon, which is actually pretty important. Going over to Laughing Clouds, excuse me, for a seemingly free Keeper's Verdict used on God knows who, quite frankly. So a little bit of a lapse in sort of agency there, and you know, sort of quick thinking as Laughing Clouds is just going to walk out on Soul Point, but Charm going to be landing on the Cruelty, who's taking a half health. There's Cyclone as well as Chains of Corruption. Going to get deleted by the Piercing Arrow. Dwango Unchained now realizing in a bad spot. Bumba going to be used, but a huge Scatter the Weak onto the backline. It isn't going to matter. Oh, it is. Syndra's gonna go down. That is a huge pick. Dwango Unchained now in a very, very bad spot. Mockingbird and Gragas just going to take this troll to the Death Realm. A little bit more bombas coming out. There is going to be the bone plating popped on Braum, so not much damage going through, but that is 3 members, the top side of Omega Gaming Hydra, taken off the rift for the next at least 30 seconds. Those 3 members are the strong members for the side of Omega. Laughing Clouds can easily take this Baron. It looks like they're going to.
I'm going to send people back to respond to this mid push that's coming out from Omega Gaming Hydra as well. Just try to collect those waves because they don't need all 5 there to get this Baron. And yeah, it's going to be picked up for the side of Laughing Clouds. And that's the exact sort of fight I feel like you don't really want as a Syndra. It's like really awkward on the angles. Yes, Professor hits a big stun, but the fight is just really scattered. And you know, I've been in that position many times as Syndra. The weak were scattered, and in this case, Omega Gaming Hydra were the weak, unfortunately, as Laughing Clouds pick up a major lead with the Soul Point and the Asher buff secured.
That is a huge swing in who's driving, this game, in my opinion. I think a series of just what I can only describe as like mental lapses for the side of Omega Gaming Hydra. A pointless engage onto a Gragas by this Poppy. The Keeper's Verdict used, just a complete, a lack of a response to getting put to Soul Point with this second Mountain Dragon taken by Laughing Clouds, and then sort of over-engaging on a fight where we had already sort of blown an ultimate in a position where your one WinCon member here in this Syndra is not good. The positioning was not there, right? Scatter the Weak hitting multiple members, like you said, over the wall is good, but in a choke like that, in a position where Scatter the Weak has to be used over a separate wall from the rest of your team, gives the position of the Syndra away, right? So the stun was there, but all of the members could just immediately turn on the Syndra, and Syndra got deleted. We're getting a little bit of trading up here on the top side, but just to make the rest of that point, Trundle is behind, Xayah is behind. Like, this is not a team that can fight without the Syndra. But Chunky Monkey going to get engaged on, Bumba going to be used in response. Keeper's Verdict going down, but Dwango getting taken incredibly low. There is the Subjugate being used, but Phase Rush is just too strong of an ability, and you take that 1v2 every day of the week, and you will take those 2 ultimates every day of the week if you are Chunky Monkey on this Gragas.
That's why Gragas can be so frustrating to play against. I mean, he has self-heal with the E, with the ultimate, with Phase Rush, and the Q. Like, all of those come together to make a champion that is incredibly hard to kill, especially for 2 melees. Unless you get the lockdown timed perfectly, with like a pillar into the Steadfast Presence or the Heroic Charge and then the Steadfast Presence. You gotta really work hard to get that kill. Also, the enhanced boots and the Cosmic Drive just adding even further to the amount of move speed this champion can get. So it's turret picked up, I believe, by Laughing Clouds in the mid lane, and no proper response from the side of Omega, who are now down 3,000 gold going into the later stage of the game here.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, honestly, I'm surprised I didn't consider this before, being a jungle player and someone who loves Trundle. I don't see why we took Trundle top of this game. I don't know if it's a particularly good matchup, Trundle into Gragas in the top lane. I would imagine, I'm not a top lane player, forgive me, but I would imagine I'd rather be Poppy into Gragas just by nature of having the Steadfast Presence and being able to sort of stop the Gragas shenanigans a little bit easier than Trundle can. And having Trundle be able to itemize into something like a Triforce Deadman's Plate rather than going to this split push build with the Hullbreaker with the Ravenous Hydra, right? Trundle is noticeably not very tanky this game and doesn't have true tank stats to steal. The best member to be ulting, if you're the Trundle, right, to press Subjugate on, is Wukong, by virtue solely of his Stone Skin passive, which gives him stacking armor, right? So it's kind of a weird position for the Trundle to be in the top lane, and I'm sort of only now realizing, I don't know if I fully agree with the lane assignments here, Scatter the Weak.
Yeah, I liked the bait that Red v Blue was going for there. We see Cruelty and Professor hanging out on the side in Laughing Clouds' jungle, but the position's given away a little early from Professor, and I think that's going to make this fight much harder to play, because Laughing Clouds is going to start up the Dragon.
They also have that defensive ward over the wall, so they are going to know where Poppy is. Keeper's Verdict being channeled. Who's going to hit? They hit the Varus. That's an important member of the team, and it's going to be enough. Omega Gaming Hydra is going to be able to answer and take the Dragon for themselves. They're not willing to take the rest of that fight without their top laner and without their ADC being a 4v3. And they're going to, at least stop the Dragon Soul from coming through for Laughing Clouds for the time being.
And I think for Laughing Clouds, they didn't get a lot of value out of that Baron. I believe that was only the mid lane inner turret that they were able to take off of, you know, a buff that gives a lot of pushing power. And despite Chunky Monkey absorbing a lot of pressure top side, so I think maybe they've got to play around these, you know, inner turrets on the side lane now. Try to crack open some of that gold and fight on the top side jungle here.
Cruelty landing that stun. Oh, Scatter the Weak going to be used onto Karma, but it's Wukong who is going to find the rest of this damage. Unleash power being used. Wukong being removed from the game for the next like 40-ish seconds. Good pick. Critically, though, Dragon and Baron are not up. Baron will be the next objective, spawning any minute. Wukong will be back up for that. But Flash and Cyclone use. Cyclone will be back up by you know, the time this Baron shows up onto Summoner's Rift. But Flash will not, and that's a critical Summoner spell on a Wukong. Wukong relies on Warrior Trickster, Flash into Cyclone, right? And not having that is a pretty unfortunate Summoner spell to be missing. Poppy with, you know, Heroic Charge and Hex Flash sort of has an easier time, you know, expending Summoner spells to just be able to maintain priority and able to, you know, engage in the rest of these fights. So we'll see if that matters moving into the next objective here.
Is going to be doing this blue buff. Getting that team-wide buff is nice, but they're not really in position around the Baron, and Omega Gaming Hydra has a lot of vision control in that area. Approaching into the Syndra is going to be pretty scary for Laughing Clouds, unless they can reclaim some of that vision, but it's not started up right away. They're trying to find a pick probably before they move on to that objective. And for now, Laughing Clouds, Hex Flash is over.
Oh, Steadfast Press is stopping the Spirit Rush. Keeper's Verdict going to be used. Flash into Spirit Rush going to be used, but Scout of the Weak critically going to land the stun, and then Concussive Blows is going to land the next stun, but they are just out of range. And Dwango, what are we doing? Bumba got to come out here, and oh my God, 2 members getting taken very low. That's 2 members dead now. A Chunky Monkey dares the Bumba. Featherstorm going to be used. Blade Collar not going to have to be used here as 2 members get taken out. Scout of the Weak, though, landing on a Notoriety. Warrior Trickster going to take him out of range of that single damage. That is a very scary Syndra, but notably, this is a 5v3 and a near guaranteed Baron for the side of Laughing Clouds. Let's see what their response is. They might have to be okay with pushing mid here.
That's a fight that's just like pixels away from Mockingbird going down right at the start, but instead, it's Laughing Clouds getting the first return kill off of Dwango, overstepping a little bit, and then that gives Ahri the ultimate reset, which helps them extend the fight a little bit and ultimately pick up the Baron. We'll see if this time they can get a little more value out of it, as they are knocking on the door of this top lane inner turret.
And forgive me, Potatoes, for going back to points we talked about in draft, but I have to bring it up that there was discussion we had about both teams not really wanting to play directly for hard engage. I think both of these teams are much more comfortable playing backwards, and we see it work out for Laughing Clouds there. Part of me has to wonder if the decision to not start the Baron and force Laughing Clouds to come to you is now biting Omega in the butt, right? Instead of forcing the objective and forcing the enemy team to come to them, they force themselves to run at the enemy team. And this team is so slippery. We've discussed how slippery Karma, Ahri, Wukong, Gragas are, right? Chains of Corruption just inevitably gives Varus a really, really good tool to get out of danger's way, on top of having that barrier up, on top of having that flash up. And I think it bites Omega in the butt, right? Like, they force themselves so hard to find this pick that just was not there. They expend everything, and they lose 2 members and Baron for it. And now, with Dragon spawning in a minute, I don't think they're willing to play super far into this bottom side river.
The tricky thing for Laughing Clouds now is they're still having a bit of trouble finding a real foothold in these lanes. Professor's threat from out of Fog of War is pretty strong, as we see Solo Mason get chunked to almost half health there.
He uses the barrier, but kind of late, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that did anything.
Might have blocked the Storm Surge proc, which is not a ton of damage, and a little bit of the burn from the Black Fire Torch as well. But yeah, not necessarily the optimal value out of that Summoner spell. And Professor still has the unleashed power to finish off a kill if one should present itself. There might be in some danger again.
Yeah, Cruelty. The Steadfast Presence does go down by the time that the Heroic Charge comes out. Mockingbird just going to be comfortable, but oh, not for long. Unleashed power being used, but Karma shields are literally broken. Riot. Counter engage. Are we going to see it out for the side of Laughing Clouds? Looks like not. This mid laner Mockingbird on Ahri is taken a little bit too low. Both teams are going to sort of cautiously wade into the river, hoping that this next fight and the next half of this fight doesn't go the other team's way. Pillar of Ice being used, Scatter the Weak landing onto the chunky monkey Gragas. Steadfast Presence coming out, keep his verdict as well, but Zonius is going to buy a little bit of time. Cyclone being used. A member is charmed up, but it's the support Notoriety having to flash defensively over the wall. Solar Mason taken very low. Solar Mason taken down. Mockingbird can't provide enough damage over the wall, but just enough to take out Red v Blue on the Braum. We're now running for the hills as one member, critically the ADC for Laughing Clouds, is taken low. Oh no, Mockingbird taken so low, and an auto is gonna do it. Professor takes Ahri to school. A D-shot being run down by the troll himself. Ultimate into the auto. Chomp is not gonna save you. Dragon being put to soul point for both of these teams. Omega Gaming takes that fight home.
Omega Gaming once again fighting back really well into the Baron buff. You know, it's a tricky thing to balance when you've got something that's so crucial like the Dragon Soul opportunity coming up, but you also want to play in these lanes to maximize the value of that purple worm. So yeah, it ends up being a little. I really wish I could see that again, because I don't know exactly how that went so bad. You know, Mockingbird got away from the initial engage, and it looked like Laughing Clouds might have an opportunity to fight back. But I do think Professor is just taking over these fights with all that damage coming out of the Syndra.
I think the thing that mostly goes wrong is Scatter the Weak connects onto Gragas. Gragas then has to defensively use abilities and is taken so low by the damage of Omega Gaming Hydra that has to, I think there is just so much damage that comes out that Zonius has to get popped immediately, right? Gragas ultimate I don't think was used, if I'm not mistaken. I think just basically that fight immediately became a 4v5, right? Gragas was either in stasis or dead. And, you know, I think just this Cinder damage is really, really doing work. I mean, Crypt Bloom, Storm Surge, Blackfire Torch. Zone is going to be completed, but Rabadoodles is out, right? And this Ahri is indexed so much into extended fights. So I think when a pick does happen and Cinder's ready for it, like, Omega Gaming eats those fights up every day of the week.
The Rabadon's completion is a big milestone for this Ahri, though. I think she's kind of been sitting on a lot of these components for, like, honestly feels like 5 to 10 minutes. So now that that is completed, I think these fights are going to be a little bit easier for her to play out. But it's still Laughing Clouds feeling like they're a little bit on the back foot, and the Trundle gets a shutdown in the bottom side.
We're going to get to see this one.
Oh,
I've done that. I've done that. I won't judge. I've literally done it. I've literally done it. Oh, but gonna have to use flash, so at least we take those. Flashing the mastery. What a BM. What a BM move. You know, just to keep Dwango, you know, ego in check. I will say you lost the lane, bud. So interesting that you're flashing the mastery on Trundle. But nevertheless, when you're Dwango, you do take those. Unfortunate misclick for Chunky Monkey here in the garage.
A lot of damage mid.
Landing onto a lot of members. Steadfast Presence was not up, but oh no, the Keeper's Verdict into the Scatter the Weak being used. Is stun going to come out onto the Gragas? Yes, it is. Xeric's Gauge as well as a huge shield going to turn the tides. Cruelty on Poppy getting taken low. Red v Blue, what are you going to do? Mockingbird coming in with the Spirit Rush, the charms, the Qs. Zoni's going to have to be dropped on Professor. You are in a bad spot. Mr. Teacher going to be taken low. Can Notoriety get it? He cannot. He goes down. Not enough damage, not enough follow-up. Trundle running in. Is he going to be able to do anything? Not in time for the Varus to be able to drop a lot of damage onto this champion. However, Mockingbird is a champion and has a build that is going to favor the extended fights, so they're not going to push their luck. Omega Gaming Hydra. Wow, what a close one there, Potatoes.
It's super close, and it feels like a little bit of an overextension from that mid jungle on Laughing Clouds, because they still have the Trundle split pushing them down in the bot side. While all of that was going on, the bottom inhibitor was secured by Omega Gaming Hydra, and I think they had a couple members walking back to respond to that while the Ahri Wukong were trying to get that kill on Professor. And yes, if you find it, it is a big kill with the Baron Nashor coming up, but now they've given over their jungler, and that might give Omega the window to take this objective.
Yeah, this is really feeling like it could be anyone's game, to be honest. And there were several times where I didn't think it was going to be anyone's game. And, you know, we're looking at a 40-minute game where, you know, we're past the 40-minute mark. We are under 500 gold difference, right? This is like a 300, 400 gold difference. We are going to see Omega Gaming start up this Baron here. They might actually just take it. I don't know if there's a response.
Notoriety's close. Mockingbird's on the back side.
There's no way. Yep, Scatter the Weak.
They do so much damage.
Yeah.
The Trundle, the Xayah.
Trundle, Xayah, you know, Syndra's abilities aren't like super conducive to doing Baron, but like when you're this fed and ahead, or not ahead, I should say, I guess, you know, Ari's not, you know, weak by any means either, but when you have this much damage and this much, you know, itemization into damage, like you're going to hurt an objective as well, right?
Not hesitate to call the Syndra ahead though. That is
Sure.
she's on full build. The Ari's still got 2 unfinished item slots.
Oh, that is 2. Excuse me. I thought that was just my brain read needlessly large rod as a finished item. Ooh, Charm is going to land. Scatter the Weak is going to miss. Spirit Rush. I'm not sure if that was a Spirit Rush used. Yes, it was. Mockingbird looking for something. Steadfast Presence. What's it going to do? Probably nothing. Ari's ready to just wait that out. Nothing going to happen, but Professor taken very, very low, right? They have this Baron, but again, we might see a sort of a, you know, not a misuse, but not much gotten out of a Baron again. TP is going to be expended on Professor here. Rooted up is Red v Blue, but 2 hits kind of the weak. Glacial Fissure hits the other one, and bye-bye Mockingbird, bye-bye Karma. Varus, you're next to go. Can he do it? No, he cannot. Here, taken to about 1/3 health. Notoriety, the monkey's running all alone as Gragas is getting pushed under his own top inhibitor turret by the Troll King himself. Pillar coming out, bye-bye Fat Man. He goes down. Inhibitor's going to be taken low, and this might be it. There's the stun landing on a Notoriety. Cyclone Flash isn't going to save you. Yes, it is. I lied. I'm keeping everybody on their toes, but 2 inhibitors going down. That is all 3 taken out for Laughing Clouds. They've only got 1 Nexus turret remaining, and they've only got 1 champion to defend it, and it's not enough. Game 1 going to Omega Gaming Hydra.
Wow, that's heartbreak for Laughing Clouds, as they had I think a pretty well played early to mid game, but things just kind of fall apart in those last 10 or so minutes, you know, unable to claim the Dragon Soul, and then also giving over the Baron, which leads to a monster split push from the Trundle, and just, you know, at that point the Syndra and the Xayah have scaled to the point where they really can win these fights and play them the way they want to. So it's a really back and forth game overall. You know, I think Laughing Clouds can still be a little happy that they've showed they totally have the means to make a win happen, but it just feels like they let it slip a little bit towards the end there.
Yeah, I want to give both of these teams credit in this game 1. I think it's 2 very evenly matched teams. We might be going to 3 tonight is what I'm feeling in my bones. But, you know, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, you know, I have to, you know, beat this dead horse and bring it back to the point that I was bringing before, right? Both teams, very clearly to me at the end, didn't quite have the gas to full engage and finish those fights cleanly, right? Like both teams had just enough tools to get, you know, their critical members out, even if it's on low health. TP Professor back, right? Professor had to use Flash, Scatter the Weak, Zonia's to get out of that last engage, and Laughing Clouds just didn't have enough in the tank to get that critical kill, right? With Syndra dead, that's a different ending to that game, quite possibly, right? And they just didn't have enough in the tank. They end up getting out, and then they've blown their you know, all of their cooldowns, all of their summoner spells, their ultimates, and then they pay the price for it, right? They hang around a little bit too long. Professor comes through with that teleport on the Syndra and just hits a critical 2-man stun with Scatter the Weak, right? And yeah, this takes me back to my point that I was saying that one of these teams, or both, and I think the answer actually in truthfulness is both teams sort of had to play into awkward fights by nature of the compositions and how they matched up. Jesus Christ.
And it felt like, you know,
I'm so
for the side
sad.
of Omega Gaming Hydra, they really had like that one key member. It's if you kill Syndra, you win. If you don't, you lose. Whereas I think the threats were a little more diversified on the side of Laughing Clouds, and that meant that they really had to play together to capitalize on, you know, any mispositioning that happened from the Syndra. And yeah, it felt like for a good chunk of the mid game they were doing that really well, but then at the end, Syndra got to play her game, and in the late game, game's all hers.
Yep. And, you know, it's funny looking at the Trundle turret, total damage to turrets. Also, Braum did 0 damage to turrets. Hit it once. Like, how does that happen? Hit a turret, man. But anyway.
Letting the ADC get the solo gold, you know?
This is the strength of Trundle, by the way. And I think why a lot of teams are placing more priority in it. I think it's still, I will die on this hill. I think it's better in the jungle. But Trundle, like, did nothing for most of the game, right? Like, lost the lane. Like, let's be very blunt about it. Trundle did not win that lane. Lost the first turret. Was down, no, maybe up like 10, 15 CS. But, like, 4 and 2 to Gragas' like 4-1 and whatever. Clearly was not, you know, the top laner that game. Trundle still does that. right? Like Trundle can still be like, I'm just gonna run down this turret, and then hits a point in the game where like Trundle ult when you're alone, and you're getting ripped by Hullbreaker, Ravenous Hydra. It's just like there's nothing Gragas can do, even though Gragas, Chunky Monkey played an excellent game. Like that's just what Trundle does, right? Just warps your sense of who the stronger champion is, and I think that's why it's so strong, and that's why it's so picked. Curious to see what changes game 2. I'd like to see maybe some compositions that are, oh,
It's
what
a,
is that?
a
What was
little bit
that?
of a
Wait,
post
broadcast
game.
hover that?
It's a
Summoner
summoner
level
spell bug in
4.
the post game screen. I don't know what. Yeah, what is that like the dash from Mark
Quiet.
Dash or something?
Trundle
I
hacked
don't
and
know.
took unreleased summoner
He's
spells.
leaking. He's leaking the new updates. But yeah, it,
Yeah,
it does feel like a lot of what Trundle was able to do that game is kind of off the back of the rest of the team's strength. Like we saw it
sure.
twice. Laughing Clouds was able to secure the Baron and yet find very little out of it because of all the threat that Professor had, playing out of vision over these walls super well, making sure that, if you want to walk up and hit this turret, it might come at the cost of your life. And while all that's going on, eventually the Trundle hits the point where he can just whack, 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 and the turret goes down.
Yeah,
And yeah,
instantaneously. Yep, and that ends up being all she wrote for game 1. There's our faces. I'm excited to see what changes game 2. I'd like to see a little bit of compositions that are just like maybe not. I don't want to say they're identical this game, but a lot of these fights I think were played wrong by one team by virtue of the fact that both teams sort of had an easier time disengaging than they did hard committing onto a team, right? I'd like to see maybe different compositional styles. It's clear that both of these teams are comfortable on this type of composition, like something like wait for them to make a mistake pushing on us and then capitalize on that mistake, right? Especially with how ahead Professor got on Syndra, I'd like to see them play maybe something with a little bit more like pedal to metal, foot to the gas, right? Clearly, all of these players are very well matched in lane, but when you can get that Syndra that ahead that early, who's to say you can't take sort of an early game composition and really try and, not have a 45, 50-minute game, but have a 20, 25-minute game, right? Cut that game down short. I'm curious to see how these players are feeling after game 1. I don't think anyone should feel down and out for the count, for that matter, right? I think we still have a lot of League of Legends ahead of us, and 2 very, very evenly matched teams. But before we head into our break before game 2, any last points, comments, concerns to make?
nothing too major. I mean, I still have a question mark in my head of would lethality Varus have been the move here? Because I think one thing that was hard for Laughing Clouds to
Oh,
match was
yes.
just the permanent
Yeah, I
threat
think the
of
answer is
Syndra
yes.
with the scout of the week coming out. They didn't really have a long range ability that could threaten Omega Gaming in the same way. And I think if they can like chunk out Syndra before the Wukong goes in or something like that, I think that makes their life way easier to play. Because lethality Varus still does very good damage to the tanks, the Poppy and the
Oh
Trundle.
yeah, it's percent
So
max HP damage with piercing arrow and blighted quiver, right? As well as your your blight stacks
yeah.
on top of missing health. It's still a huge damage.
And we saw how hard it could be for Varus to walk up when there is the threat of the scout of the week. So
Yeah,
that's one little bit of a question mark for me. I mean, I can't say definitively, but that's maybe something I would have angled for in this game.
yeah.
But
I
it's
I
always
believe
tough to say.
professionals, if I'm not mistaken, I think in professional play, at least at MSI, we've seen Varus go the lethality route more often than we've seen the on hit. I think on hit is easier to execute at lower sort of skill levels. Not that this is a low skill level, but it's we're not pros. But I do agree with you. I think, and my stance on it, I'll take the position of I think it was a mistake. I think lethality Varus was the move here. But before we get too ahead of ourselves and we just run right into game 2, we're gonna cut to a quick break. Ladies, gentlemen, guys, gals, other pals, stay tuned. This is Titan Esports Conqueror. I'm Swifty. That's Freedom Potatoes. That's Toby right behind him. We'll be right back with game 2. Omega Gaming Hydra, Laughing Clouds. Oh, hello, all my Titan Esports viewers and friends. My name is Swifty. That's Freedom Potatoes. You are joining us here for Game 2 of Omega Gaming Hydra versus Laughing Clouds, a cross-group match here in Week 6 of Titan Esports Conqueror. We are getting down to the wire of what these final placements will be, who's going to make playoffs, who's quite not going to make that cusp. Omega Gaming Hydra is currently up 1-0 on Laughing Clouds after a very, very well-fought game from both teams, about a 45-ish minute game, if I am not mistaken. I almost called you Jamie. Freedom Potatoes. Walk me through it. How'd game one go?
It was absolute banger across the board. I think we saw Laughing Clouds getting out to a strong early start, using a slightly stronger early bot lane to get some gold, get a dragon in their pockets. They got first turret, so they had those feats, but it was never like a runaway victory for them. But they were slowly accumulating those little advantages. Then Omega Gaming brought it back a little bit in the mid game. Laughing Clouds fought back, got 2 Barons, but was unable to fully capitalize on those. And then we saw both teams sitting on 3 dragons apiece in this extended banger of a game. And ultimately, it was Omega Gaming Hydra who was able to win the fight, get the last Baron, and then end the game through, a mix of the strong Trundle split push and just a little bit better team fighting in the late game.
Yeah, it almost felt like one of those old-timey cartoons where it's like, you got 2 people running a race and it's like, who's gonna be the winner? Both teams sort of clawing their way back into things, gold advantage wise, objective differential wise, right? 2 Barons for Laughing Clouds. That maybe there's arguments there to be made about how efficiently they use their Baron, but nevertheless, very close either way. These 2 teams notably have very, very evenly matched laners. I noticed that there was no like runaway lanes. There were certainly advantages in lanes, right? I think we started to see rather Professor on the Syndra pull out ahead of Mockingbird, not necessarily by virtue of just being an overpowering presence in the lane, but just I think by nature of the adjacencies and game state, right? As well as the top lane. I think Chunky Monkey for the side of Laughing Clouds started to really pull ahead. I think but not necessarily in like I stomped you in this lane, but again, just by nature of the game state. But these things quickly started to get flipped on their head. It was very back and forth, which to me leads to the most exciting form of League of Legends, where you don't know what's going to happen until it happens, right? Moving into this game, I know right before we went to break, we discussed a little bit about draft, what was going to change. I am sort of a proponent of, I would like to see these teams play something a little bit different. I think both teams were very comfortable and proficient into a sort of extended fight, self-peel, play backwards comp. And I think it did more harm than good for both teams in terms of just being on a comfortable comp that they could like fully execute clearly the whole game, right? I think by virtue of the fact that both teams went up and down, clearly both teams playing backwards and being good at it meant, at any point in the game, like, one fight could have gone the wrong way, which it did several times, right? So I'm a proponent, I guess, moving into game 2 of these 2 teams switching up things a little bit, but I'm curious to see what that might be. Tell me your thoughts, Potatoes.
I mean, thanks to Fearless Draft, something's got to change. We are not going to see a salty run back, but stylistically, I mean, I looked at these teams' match histories a bit, and I felt like they were actually playing a lot of things that are a little different than what they usually go for. Like I think the Ahri was a relatively something that hadn't been picked so much, and a lot of the other picks across the board were newcomers for these guys. So
sure,
it's a lot of those comfort picks are still going to be open for them, I guess, is kind of the main point here. Some of those like carry junglers, both junglers, like they've played Viego and Gwen in the past. Those are high DPS champions that can kind of take over a game. And like the bot laners, we saw Lucian and Tristana both banned away last game. Those are some champions that can put out a lot of early aggression, and I'm curious to see if any of those will be picked up this time around. Because I think these both lanes, in addition to being pretty evenly matched skill-wise, also have a lot of overlap in their champion.
Yeah, and on that point, before the first game started, we talked about how Lucian was seemingly a contested pick for both of these ADCs, Solar Mason as well as Paneer. And I noticed teams have switched sides. Laughing Clouds now on blue side. They had banned 3 first phase on red side, but not banned this game, but also not picked B1. So maybe we will see it come up in this game. It is a much more lane dominant force of an ADC, of a marksman, than Varus or Xayah are. Both are sort of, they want to bide their time, they want to play at range, right? They have forms of their own self-peel. And the first ADC we're going to see is Sivir, who kind of fits in the same vein, if I'm not mistaken, as, right, like, when you don't want to get got in lane, you pick Xayah, you pick Sivir, right? You pick Varus, but it's going to be responded with a Zeri, actually, which is not something we see picked a lot in the meta. Certainly viable and pickable. I'm pretty sure our team has picked this recently. And
Lulu.
paired with a Lulu, who is just really strong. If you didn't know, Lulu is strong as heck. So let's see what they match with. I imagine it's going to be a support. There is no way Lulu gets flexed anywhere else. It is a rel. What do you think about these bots?
A little bit more engaged on the side of Omega Gaming Hydra, obviously with the rel. And the Sivir, I think, is really encouraging them to go for a team that wants to follow up on that engage. You've got the Jax already as a bruiser that you can kind of speed in to follow up on the rel. And I'd expect to maybe see, well, the Jax could be a flex top jungle. I'd assume they take a jungle into the Xin, since that was first pick for Laughing Clouds. But they can flex it depending on what the top lane matchup looks to be, because they do have that last pick. I think I generally expect to see more champions that kind of want to follow up on the speedy engage that Omega Gaming has. On the flip side, I think Laughing Clouds is going to look to maybe pick up something that can slow down the fight a little bit, let the Zeri Lulu do their thing.
Yeah, I would bet that this is going to be a Jax jungle by virtue of the bans for both teams being top laners. Plus, I think, it being a response with the Counter-Strike into Xin Zhao, right? Xin Zhao relies on auto attacks. His Determination passive relies on auto attacks. Technically, when becomes Lightning, does stack it, but not as well as 3-Talon Strike, right? The knockup Q. So I imagine it's Jax jungle. But we do see a Shen here, which all but solidifies Shen into whatever matchup we have. I don't think they're going to want to take Jax into that. They're going to round out with a Mel, by the way. This is 100% a Mel mid lane. This is sort of, it's easy to tell what's going on here for Laughing Clouds. And Cho'Gath, which all but solidifies Jax's jungle, if I am not mistaken. Cho'Gath into Shen.
Cho'Gath into Shen. I mean, Cho'Gath can do a lot of damage to those tanks and becomes quite tanky himself, but there's a lot of protection for the Zeri on the side of Laughing Clouds. Interestingly, with the Mel pick, I don't really see like a key skill shot for her to be reflecting. Like maybe she can reflect some of Azir's ultimate. I actually don't know how that interaction works. But yeah, the Emperor's Divide. But for the most part, there's not a lot of skill shots that like it can. I think it can be like Windwalled and then it like stops short, but it's a bit of a weird one.
Wouldn't it be funny if it like ate the soldiers and then soldiers just like came out of hell like
counter scoop. But
counter scoop.
A lot of scaling on both teams. The bot lane is going to be dishing out tons of DPS in the late game. Both of these mid laners also have arguably kind of weak early games, very matchup dependent, but they will be dealing a lot of DPS later into the game as well. The Azir always, a classic staple of pro play. I in my opinion, a bit weak in the current meta, just because they hit his early game pretty hard in some of the recent patches, but nevertheless has a lot of playmaking potential and does a lot of damage once he gets later into the game. So I think Omega Gaming has a pretty clear identity. They have the rel for primary engage, a lot of follow-up options with the Jax, Cho, and the Azir. Whereas Laughing Clouds, a little bit more of that same like kite back style that we saw in game number 1. And really like Xin Zhao is kind of the only engage option they have, which could be a problem for them later on.
Yeah, and Xin Zhao notoriously is not a late game jungler, right? Like is a catalyst jungler, a tempo setting jungler, high agency jungler in the early to mid game. Is not going to compete with Jax in the late game, at least in terms of damage, right? And just like survivability in fights. Sure, has Crescent Guard to be able to stop Azir, to be able to stop Sivir damage coming through. But Crescent Guard is not an ability that changes late game fights, right? It's no Fiddlesticks ult, it's nothing like that. So the strongest portion of this game for Xin Zhao is for sure going to be the early game. It's funny, I'm almost of two opinions as we get a nice little brief moment of respite. The calm before the storm, if you will. Sorry. So I just wanted to do that while the game is frozen. I'm of sort of two opinions here on Omega Gaming's comp. I think if they have the time in this game to get to a comfortable point in terms of itemization, right? Like gold items in their pocket levels, they have so many more tools in the late game, in my opinion, to just beat the living crud out of Laughing Clouds. Like, I think these are like 4 really good scaling champs, right? As opposed to like Mel and Zeri are really the only 2 late game pieces of insurance that Laughing Clouds has. I think, like Laughing Clouds needs to put their foot down early, but do they have the tools to do that, right? When their ADC in their Mel, their mid laner, aren't going to be able to do a lot of damage before they hit items, right? And that the only option that leaves is like, oh, do we play into top side? But why play into a Shen, right? The Shen, you're supposed to top lane islands, right? The whole strength of Shen is that he can join a fight from the other side of the map when you're investing resources somewhere else, right? So like I'm not concerned is the word, but I'm curious to see if the scaling is going to even though it's like almost too much scaling, one might argue, on the side of Omega Gaming Hydra, if by nature of maybe not having a lot of other tools outside of Xin Zhao to press early game pressure, if Laughing Clouds is going to be able to do that, right? Do you understand? You know what I mean?
I agree with what you're saying. Like, I think on paper, Laughing Clouds comp maybe has a bit of the early edge, but like not enough to really drive home a game unless they manage to find some really good angles. And then when the late game comes around, even though the 2 carries for Laughing Clouds are like maybe even slightly stronger on an individual basis than Omega Gaming's carries, they as a composition might struggle once the game goes late.
Yeah, it's almost as if like, okay, you've gotten your Mel and your Zeri to the point where they're like really strong late game, the champions that they want to be. You're still answering a Sivir, Jax, Azir, and probably a Cho'Gath who's eaten like 50 different lunches over the course of the game. You know what I mean? And it feels like it might be an uphill battle, but nevertheless, I have been proved wrong a plethora of times here on the cast. So very curious to see how this plays out. And Dwango off to a nice little health lead here, but Shield and what I believe is the regen from a health potion is going to take Chunky Monkey back up a little bit into a little bit more comfortable position here. But other than that, nothing crazy happening in these lanes quite early, at least for the time being, Potatoes.
I wouldn't expect anything too crazy. A lot of these lanes really just don't even have the tools to like heavy trade in the early game. Outside of this top lane, I guess we did see some trading from the Cho'Gath on the Shen. And I think the Shen, like how the Shen is piloted is really going to decide a lot of this game, because if he's finding good usages of those ults around objective timers or to enable a split push, I think that can definitely push the game in Laughing Clouds' favor. But I think Shen is a hard champion to play and to get the full value out of, because the ultimate is not a straight up combat ultimate. It doesn't just do damage. It doesn't just CC people. That's a flash from Red v Blue.
Stun is coming out though, so D-Shot taken very, very low, but Solar Mason is able to use that E over the wall. Is it the E? Yes, it's the E. Spark Surge is the dash. E over that wall, so D-Shot taken pretty low, but critically Flash expended for both supports, and Ignite actually for Red v Blue on this rel.
And no Hex Flash on the rel means it's actually going to be a little harder to capitalize on that Lulu's Flash being down. Still totally doable, but it's not as easy. Spellbook is going Spellbook and not having Hex Flashes. Maybe I guess you can use the on cooldown Flash to get a different spell, but yeah, I don't even know if D-Shot had to Flash in that engage just
I don't think
now.
so.
It seemed like the rel was totally on cooldown, so
Panier's
getting chunked out a bit.
Yeah.
Solar Mason dashing forwards.
On the note of Spellbook, by the way, sorry to cut you off, but I did notice something before I forget it. Cho'Gath took Hail of Blades.
Yep.
Are you okay with that?
I think it's pretty strong on Cho. I mean, when you can
Shen?
A lot of Cho'Gath's ability to get good damage off into tanks comes from the E, because I believe that does max health damage, I want to say.
And just stop that from happening?
Well, the spikes aren't the spikes are an additional effect on top of an auto attack.
So it's not one hit.
Yeah. So when even when Shen has that Spirit's Refuge.
Uh-oh.
Wait a minute. That
Oh
might be,
no!
no,
Dwango!
it's exactly the opposite. Just as we're talking about how good those Hail of Blades are. I mean, to be fair, that was maybe 1 or 2 auto attacks from a kill in favor of the Cho'Gath, but instead it's first blood
Instead, we
to
just
the tower.
fumble that bag so dang hard. Oh yeah. That's one of those like, God, what am I doing moments? But it happens to the best of us. Dwango, for the time being, is now chained. Don't tell Jamie Foxx. Little Quentin Tarantino reference for all those Tarantino fans like myself. But anyway, that is unfortunate. First blood going over to Laughing Clouds. You'll take it if you're the Shen. That lane, it was not, and probably still won't be, going in the favor of this Shen. Interesting enough, it's now Blasting Wand, Ruby Crystal coming out for Cho'Gath. Help me understand what that is building into. Does Shirelia's build from that?
No, it is not. That could be a Rod of Ages as wow.
Oh no, we are getting just... What are we doing, Omega? Unfortunate, but Notoriety's going back in. You're playing with fire here, Xin. Is the damage going to be enough for the ultimate to come through on Mel? It is not. Flash is going to be expended. Dwango coming to the rescue for Professor here in the mid lane, but not after they critically lost a member. It is now 2 kills, 2-0. Laughing Clouds is 1 kill away from that feat of strength for Warfare, or as I like to call them, the Foots of Strong.
Yeah, Notoriety almost getting caught out on the invade, but Chunky Monkey hits level 6 and is able to make the first move with the Stand United. And now is, yeah, that's 2 kills up for Laughing Clouds and almost 1,000 gold lead in what, we thought was not going to be super eventful of an invade.
Ooh, stun coming out from Cruelty on this Jax, but the little damage blocking out of Mockingbird is going to buy a little bit of time, but not enough. That kill is going to go over to Azir. So first blood, actually, excuse me, second blood in the mid lane. Mel did have a kill off of that last sequence of events. Azir's picking up a kill for himself here.
This is a really good lane state for the Shen. If he can get a freeze off here, I think he can actually kind of get a lot back into this Cho'Gath matchup. There's no TP on the Cho. Yeah, that's a significant deficit, and yet we saw there the Shen was able to kind of bully the Cho in the 1v1 for now. But I mean, yeah, going back, okay, I did have to look this up. Yeah, Cho'Gath's E, the Vorpal spikes, do up to like about 4% of the target's max HP per hit. And that's 3 hits, so yeah, 12% minus MR and whatever else is going on. It's a lot of damage into tanks.
It is
kind of the key point.
And forgive me, but I just noticed while this dragon was happening, I looked up at Dwango Unchained, who was seemingly kiting Krugs, and then ultimate was used. Is that a standard thing on Cho'Gath top, to go take your jungler's Krugs if you're red side? Or at least one of them? I imagine it was the small Krug.
It seemed like the situation might have been kind of unfavorable for the Cho staying in lane, so it makes sense that he kind of just goes to heal up off the little Krug if that is what happened. And it doesn't really matter what you eat early game.
I think he literally went to just go get the Krug to hide the fact that Feast was being used. But your jungler is a Jax and needs all the econ he can get.
How much is the little Krug really worth? Isn't it like 12 gold or something?
It's like not too much. Is it 14? Is it 21? Something in between there. But you are losing XP. Like, you're noticeably losing XP. And this Xin Zhao now is up almost a full rotation of camps. Maybe that's 4 camps-ish, right? That's 15, 16 CS.
So Chunky Monkey just moved down to help with the grubs, but actually loses out on quite a large wave that was coming into their turret at the time. And now Cho'Gath's gotten this reset off. Does look like that's going to be the Rod of Ages being worked on here, which is, just a nice all-around tanky AP bruisery item. And yeah, since the Shen hasn't gotten to go back yet, might be eating some serious damage from the Cho'Gath now.
Yeah, it's funny. Now that you bring up Roa, interesting to me that Cho is opting into a sort of damagey item, considering that we have threats that will inevitably be more damage than they'll need in Jax, Azir, and Sivir. Well, at least a little bit of a question mark from me on the Rod of Ages, as opposed to just, going something more standard like Heartsteel. But I guess when, if you have taken Hail of Blades for the reasons previously described to maximize Vorpal spikes. I guess maybe not going Heartsteel first does make sense. We're not going Heartsteel at all. But unless I'm mistaken, I still don't think Roa is an item that is built in this meta on Shogath. Right? If I'm not mistaken, it's if you're going Halo Blades, you go Aurelia's Shirelia's Riftmaker, or something else. But before I can finish, Stand United being used to get Solar Mason out of trouble, and now it's Cruelty in a little bit of trouble, but is able to sidestep that Shadow Dash. Gonna be able to hop to safety. Solar Mason though flashing for the kill, and before we know it, Sivir's gonna go down as well. Red v Blue is taken a little bit out of position in the fight. Can't quite get onto Solar Mason there for the stun. Is gonna have to use that flash. Defensively burns the ignite. All for naught onto Zeri. That is 2 kills going over to Laughing Clouds for 0 for Omega Gaming Hydra.
Solo Mason absolutely gliding all over the place on this Zeri, getting away from the Emperor's Divide, and yeah, able to live in a situation that started off pretty scary for the Zeri. Dropping really low, but the Stand United usage is huge. Already getting a lot of value out of that spell for Chunky Monkey, which is, you know, I like I said earlier, I think that is what's going to make or break the game for Laughing Clouds if they can use this Shen to get their carries ahead in the early game, and they are.
Yeah, they are, and like you said before, like I don't think there are a lot of tools for Omega Gaming to like press advantages earlier, right? To go sort of back to my previous point. They're a team that wants to like buy time, right? Sivir needs time, Azir needs time. Jax kind of needs a little bit of time. And Cho'Gath, like over the course of a game, is inevitably going to get stronger. But to also bring it back to my other point, right? I'm still a little bit unconvinced by this Roa, as opposed to just going like Rocket Belt. Right? If you're going to go for a damage item, why not Rocket Belt? If you're going to go for, you know, a utility AP item, why not Shirelia's? We get a flash. Oh, really early flash from Notoriety. Is it going to matter? Well, it matters in the sense that Professor flashes, but other than that, nothing. Cruelty now, walking right into Notoriety. Is it going to matter? Okay, Counter-Strike coming down onto the Crescent-guarded Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao, now you're staring down 4, and now you're staring a death screen right in the face. Another kill might be picked up here onto D-Shot, and oh, there's the feast. Chomp, chomp, night, night, Lulu. As we are now 4 kills to 3, still in favor of Laughing Clouds, but 2 picked up on behalf of Omega Gaming Hydra.
And there's a dragon spawning in 10 seconds. Those death timers are not where you want them to be for Laughing Clouds. Often just a bit of a puzzling play. I mean, that's a flash from the Zinja that's not even into range of the Wind Becomes Lightning. It requires the flash from the Mel to even force the Azir's flash. And yeah, they get caught on the back end of that play, which is going to give Dragon number 2 over to Omega Gaming Hydra, putting them 1 step closer to Soul and to that feat of monster slaying.
Yes, noticeably Grubs went over to Laughing Clouds, so there's 2 objectives to 1 in favor of Omega Gaming Hydra. However, feats of strength, like we said before, were picked up, at least the Warfare, the first 3 kills by Laughing Clouds. So in terms of first 2 out of 3 points for the feats of strength, Laughing Clouds does have 1 secured. Do have the option to fight back for the next 2 objectives to try and secure that other one, or to get the first tower. Again, the initial boots, I don't think are necessarily game warping, like completely game winning, right? I think that would be broken if they were. But, you know, it always does feel good. It's a little bit of a morale victory going into the mid game with that little bit more gold efficiency and you know, power on your boots, depending on what boot it is, you know. But we might get a little bit of a counter gank here, or counter engage, I should say. Paneer immediately taken down to half, as well as Red v Blue. Red v Blue, there's nothing to do. You're going to go down. Is it an 0 for 2? Call me Dr. Seuss. But that's not going to be an 0 for 2. That would have been really cool. That was like my most Flowers moment there.
I like that one. I like that one.
Oh, but Chunky Monkey might be in trouble here on the top side. Nope. Jax is going to say, you know what, we're just going to go for the counter jungle here rather than force something onto a Shen, who now has the Heart Seal activated. Isn't necessarily the easiest to kill, particularly for a Jax who needs to be autoing the kills. And holy crud, that was a big chunky wonky from the Chunky Monkey onto that Shogath. Shogath's going to say, nope, no thank you, and walk away with his life there. A little bit of trading happening in the mid lane, but jeez, Shen grasped the Undying proc on top of Heart Seal. That hurts.
Yeah, I mean, similar to the Cho, I believe Shen's Q also gives percent health damage. So these are actually two champions that are like they're very tanky, but they do deceptive amounts of damage to other tanks as well. And yeah, when you've got the Heart Steel as well as the Grasp on top of that, you can hit a surprising amount of damage. And with the flash up, I think Chunky Monkey maybe could have secured the solo kill there, but Cruelty was waiting in the wings, so probably better not to inject chaos into the game where there doesn't need to be.
Absolutely. Gonna recognize, you know what? I already entered the first death under tower. Let's maybe not do it again. Just, you know, just gonna respect the damage there. Also, again, has Halo Blades, has Roa. So, like, isn't very tanky. But Red v Blue is gonna take a little bit of chunking out from Notoriety. Crescent Guard is gonna be used. Keep a little bit of damage coming out, but Notoriety is taking out about, 1/3, but Lennox Unit comes out. Cruelty now taking very low on the backside. Multiple members flashing out. There's Red v Blue taking very low, but no, it's going to be Dwango, the first one to be taken down. Professor, having to use the ultimate defensively, is going to be able to dash out of that one. Emperor's Divide also used defensively. Rift Herald and Top Tower are now seemingly just open for the side of Laughing Clouds. However, it was a 1-for-1. Jungle did go down. Notoriety Xin Zhao is no longer on Summoner's Rift right now. But they do have priority. They are going to take the tower, and probably uncontested, they're going to probably take the Rift.
And that is the feat secured for Laughing Clouds. Yeah, Jax is down on the bot side just catching up in farm. The Cho'Gath doesn't have the feast, so it's going to be an objective claimed even though the Xin Zhao is not in the area. And yeah, I mean, Notoriety, I think, getting a lot of value out of the Xin Zhao pick in this early game. At least a little earlier was up like 30 CS over the Jax, kind of mimicking, I guess, what we're seeing in the top lane with a big CS lead for that Cho. But yeah, it's you know, we said that was kind of the tool Laughing Clouds had to push the tempo in the early game, and so far, even though the KD doesn't necessarily look amazing for Notoriety, I think it's been very successful.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you don't have to be alive to have your engage have worked right at the end of the fight if you're getting both the tower and the objective. The tower notably giving them feats of strength, right? It's not showing up on our HUD quite just yet, but that boot upgrade is secured for the side of Laughing Clouds. And you know, at the end of the day, it's a team game, and you know, as a jungler myself, I will more than willingly sacrifice my life for a really good engage. But Polymorphed is Red v Blue, and the jump away is going to get stalled out. That Pheromancy crash down, but Cruelty going in with the counter strike stun. It's gonna take Notoriety very low, and Notoriety is gonna go home on that one. CP coming out from Chunky Monkey. Stand United is not up there, is not able to save his dear old friend. And was that a shadow dash with a flash jumped over by Cruelty? Looks like it.
No flash, but it was.
It was just shadow dash.
Yeah,
Shadow dash and what is his leap called? Leap strike. Yeah, that was an extreme interaction. Oh, Red v Blue going out into sort of nowhere. Oh no, that Spark Surge is just such a good ability, able to buffer and keep Solo Mason alive here on this area.
And Laughing Clouds, in the meantime, did pick up the mid lane turret with that Rift Herald. Solo Mason just dropping that, becoming really strong on this area. I think if you're Laughing Clouds, that is exactly where you want your money going. Yes, the Sivir is pretty close in farm, but I think Solo Mason is in a pretty good spot. So Dragon number 3 got to be fought for.
Yep, Dragon taking down to about half health. Oh, the Rupture is going to land on Chunky Monkey, but he don't really care. But Feast is going to be used on the Dragon. Going to be secured, but we're going to lose Red v Blue on the back end of that. Panir, you just got W by Zeri, and now you just got deleted by Zeri. Let's see, is Notoriety going to go over the wall with the Audacious Charge? No, he ain't. He knows better. A little bit too much health and a little bit too many abilities up to make a dive like this possible. A little bit late in the game. That's a very, very chunky Dwango. Not quite Chunky Monkey, I would say. But it's going to try and put pressure.
He's got a little bit of health, but not a lot of resist.
There's a shadow dash. Professor is going to have to respect and dash himself. This it's going to go down, but a counter strike lands on Chunky Monkey, but it's going to matter. And oh my god, the Melzeri damage just is too much. 2 more members going down for Omega Gaming, and now if you're Laughing Clouds, you're starting to feel really good about this game, Potatoes.
Laughing Clouds laughing straight to the bank after that fight. Yes, they lose the Dragon. Omega Gaming is now on Soul Point, but they've got themselves a 4,000 gold lead. They've got those empowered boots in the back pocket for a little extra nugget of scaling as the game goes on. And this Mel is now 5-1, hitting a huge solar snare towards the end of that fight to lock down those the 2 extra kills. And yeah, I think Laughing Clouds is going to also be able to pick up some tempo on the map off the back of that.
Excuse me, had a little bit of a cough there. I'm actually noticing Shen is down like 60 CS, but is somehow seemingly more valuable in these fights than Shogat is. Is that just how strong Shen is?
Shen is pretty strong. He's got, you know, the mobility. He's able to lock down these carries. It's a strong pick. I am surprised at how even the items are. That does not look right. Like, there's no way that 1 kill and 4 assists is worth 60 CS. But I guess they've also got you know, a lead into turrets. Maybe was able to pick up some platings on top of that. So, and maybe Cho just has a big buy coming through, like the Bramble Vest. And
I mean,
the what's that? The Winged Moon Plate.
Winged Moon Plate. Yeah, but was sitting on 2 cloth armors and backed and bought Bramble Vest, which is only 200 more gold. And Winged Moon Plate, which is like 800.
Ooh, Solo Mason.
Solo Mason engaged on. Ooh, and there's that Magnet Storm, but Solo Mason just gonna be able to walk that one out. D-Shot. Gonna be able to press the D key or the F key. Looks like the F key.
Once again, I don't know if D-Shot quite needed to do that. The engage from the Rel was already expended, so I think the Lulu was actually in a fairly safe position. But, you know, a better safe than sorry. You don't want to give anything crucial up. However, this top turret does look to be in danger for the side of Laughing Clouds, but they're getting Otacon on the other side, and Dwango has the flash feast.
Has the feast. Are you gonna pull the trigger, Dwango?
It's a risky move to go for, and unless he gets that
negative Ghost Rider.
It's that's a pretty happy trade for Laughing Clouds. Although it is 2 turrets now. They had to give up top and mid lane, which is a decent chunk of gold back to Omega Gaming Hydra. But
yeah. Oh, but Dwango now might be in a bad spot. Might have hung around the bot lane for a little bit too long. Is Rupture gonna hit anything? No, it isn't. A Silence Mockingbird just gonna sidestep it, and Dwango going to be taken down. That is a dead Shogat. Looking at a gray screen for the next 30 seconds. And, you know, on your point about, you know, oh, is it worth it? It's 2 towers? I don't think so. Otacon does 15% of your current HP in an AoE explosion and a 60% slow. And gives you a ton of XP and Adaptive Force. Yeah, I'll trade the 2 towers any day of the week, to be quite honest with you.
And Soul is coming up in 1 minute and 15 seconds. I think that's what these teams have got to play for. I think Chunky Monkey's going to want to be, you know, as strong as possible here, reset, get an item purchase in, might need a little bit more gold for something, but yeah, wants to be up in top lane, drawing pressure, and then use the Stand United to join up this fight. And Laughing Clouds needs to set up vision control early, because if they give over the Soul, I think that is kind of not the only way, but I'd say they have this game pretty firmly in their control if they can deny that Soul take from the side of the fight.
Yeah, they could deny the Soul take if they set up properly, which it looks like they're doing. They got there really early. About 1 minute left on the respawn timer, and we've got multiple members already in the river. And we are now seeing a little bit of a contest of priority here in agency in the river. And Notoriety alone on this scuttle is going to get knocked up. Going to have to use the Crescent Card defensively. Counter-Strike being used. Flash. Notoriety trying to get out of here. Crescent Card drops though and able to go back in, but there's so much healing and so much damage. That is 1. That is 2. Is it going to be any more? Professor is going to be able to use that. Oh, Emperor survived, but it doesn't matter. There's no more damage on the backside of this fight. And Dwango Unchained is going to be Dwango drained of health. And that's an ace for the side of Laughing Clouds. Yeah, look at that Cho'Gath in a suit. Is that Gentleman Cho'Gath?
That is. And Solo Mason with a triple kill, doing flips with the Spark Surge over the Emperor's Divide from Professor, which just plays a huge role in that fight, getting access to the backline, able to take out so many members on the side of Omega, and that's going to be the Soul stopped in its tracks by Laughing Clouds as they pick up their first strike of the game and extend their gold lead to 6,000.
Starting to get into the point for the game here, Potatoes, where if you are Omega Gaming, you might be beginning to think about Game 3. We're now looking at about almost a 6K gold lead, if I'm looking at those numbers correctly. Yeah, a little bit, like a 5.6K, 5.5.
Rounding up.
Rounding up. It is 24 minutes, nothing crazy. You are on Soul Point, however, you're looking down the barrel of a 508 Zeri into an 033 Sivir and a 714 Mel into a 124 Azir, right? Now, by no means are these champions like fully outscaled, right? Azir and Sivir are absolutely late game threats, right? But so are Zeri and Mel. And like when they're already this ahead, there is not going to be a point in the game unless something crazy happens where you feel like you are ahead, right? You'd have to get multiple shutdowns on key priority targets, right? for the gold value to, I think, sort of start to even out for these carries for both teams here. And, you know, I think we're sort of running out of options if we're Omega, right? How do you play this? Do you wait for mistakes? Do you try and change up what's going on in terms of your win condition, right? Because how are we going to compete with this Mel's area at this point in the game?
I think the ability to find picks that Omega Gaming's comp has is kind of their way back into the game. There is a lot of on-demand CC from the Cho'Gath, Rupture, you know, the Counter-Strike from Jax, the Emperor's Divide, and everything that Rel brings to the table. If they can catch someone out and secure the Soul or the Baron, I think that can absolutely put them back into a spot where they can find a way to win this game. But on its current pace, it does feel like Laughing Clouds might be able to find the win if things continue on the current course.
Absolutely, like you're right. They have the tools to make it happen, right? I think, at least in a vacuum, this comp has a lot of on-demand CC. I'll raise you this. Stand United, Wild Growth, Crescent Guard.
I mean, we saw how valuable that was in the last fight. It looked
Exactly
like Notoriety was totally caught out, but he was able to use the Crescent Guard. Then, while being engaged on by like 4 people, dashes to the one member on the other side of the fight. Yeah, Wild Growth and Stand United. Oh, wait, hold on. There's a fight down bot happening.
Looks like a 3v2. I think Mockingbird and Chunky Monkey realize this might not be their fight. What a beautiful Shurima shuffle, but Flash is better. Chunky Monkey going to be able to get out to safety, and Mockingbird just going to say, haha, bye, Felicia. See you later.
That's a lot of those big cooldowns burned by the side of Omega Gaming.
Oh no, a little bit of a greedy back rotation. He's going to be able to buffer out that stun to get a little bit of distance.
Even win this though? Shen's pretty good in the 1v1 against these bruisers.
Is pretty good, but this is a level 13 Shen. Don't quite know what the items are, but oh, jeez Louise. Laughing Clouds has just said, all right, I'll take the Baron. Mockingbird expends the TP to get up on that side of the map. And Chunky Monkey is going to say, all right, I'll just chill down here. Don't need to do anything crazy, right? But Omega Gaming responding with good lane turret.
The second time this game we've seen the on the hunt from Sivir used to defensively to just grab an objective and run away, which, you know, it is good value. It's good that even though you're losing the Baron, you're getting something back in exchange, but it also means finding a winning fight with all the tools at your disposal is a little bit harder. They don't have that to try and find a pick now that Laughing Clouds is going to be back on the map trying to knock down these inner turrets and eventually break the base. So we'll see if that ends up being worth it or if that's a kind of a missed opportunity within the next few minutes.
Yeah, it is a quick cooldown, right? It's about already halfway done. So there is that. But again, like you said, yeah, when you're using everything sort of defensively or reactionary, like, you're inevitably not getting the full value out of it. Notoriety stunned up on the side, but Red v Blue stunned up right in front of you and is gonna eat a death screen. Now his mid lane tower with Baron push from Laughing Clouds is going to be threatening this inhibitor turret. Let's see what they can do with this Baron. I think we saw a handful of Barons not get much value out of Laughing Clouds from last game. I think they're trying to make us eat our words here, potatoes. They're pushing down this mid lane. They're keeping as much priority in the jungle as they can. Let's see what happens.
And the Shen pick is so powerful for maximizing this Baron usage. But yes, the Stand United isn't up, but Chunky Monkey still has the teleport and is hitting that bot turret. Yeah, Notoriety does get chunked out, but still has access to the Crescent Guard, so they've got to find a repeat of that exact combo they just hit. You know, the Cho'Gath Rupture, setting up all the damage from those Sand Soldiers. But Notoriety's almost back to full health off of that empowered honey fruit, and it's another turret down for Laughing Clouds. This gold lead is moving in on 10,000, and Chunky Monkey might be caught out down bot.
Yeah, Chunky Monkey is going to have to use that Spirit's Refuge to block some of those autos. Cruelty, whack it away, but I mean, this is a really tanky Chunky, but not enough. The Rupture is going to be able to land, and that's just too many people's worth of damage. Chunky Monkey a little bit overextended there and is going to pay the price for it. Cruelty landing Counter-Strike onto D-Shot. D-Shot has to flash defensively. Rel going in. Wild Growth used on the Lulu herself. There's the ultimate coming out, but your Lulu's already gone. We have to play this backwards, but Solo Mason does way too much damage. Notoriety taking 2 on the other side. He's going to get Twango incredibly low, but oh my sweet Lucille, how did you manage it, Professor? A sliver of health is able to shut down that incredibly scary Zeri. Dwango very low here. They're looking to start this Baron. Mockingbird's going to eat the Rupture, going to eat the Silence, and that's all she wrote. He goes down. This Baron, Dragon Soul, going over to Omega Gaming Hydra. And do they have a shot back into this game? That's an ace, Potatoes.
That's an ace, and that is a massive gold swing. Just as the gold lead was approaching that 10,000 mark, it's cut down to just 4,000 here. The soul is also picked up for Omega Gaming Hydra, and that is going to be a nice soul to have. A lot of extra survivability for that top side for this rel going in on the engages, and it's just a string of errors from Laughing Clouds. You know, the catch, the initial catch on a Chunky Monkey, I think they can give up, but instead D-Shot kind of wandering off into the bottom side jungle where the whole enemy team was just spotted, gets caught out. The rest of the team tries to bail the Lulu out, and then that just leads to a whole bunch more deaths. Solo Mason almost finding a super clutch flash kill onto Professor, but it's just the difference of one auto attack that the Azir lives on, and I mean, that's a huge shutdown for the major carry on the side of Omega. And yeah, it looks like they might be right back in it now with the Baron coming back up in 2 minutes. That's probably going to shape the rest of the game, how that fight goes.
Yeah, that could be a huge window and a huge opening opportunity for Omega Gaming Hydra to claw their way back into this game. You know, I think if everything's played cleanly, it is very, very hard for Laughing Clouds to lose the game. But when they make a mistake like that, when they get caught in the side lane with this Shen alone, and then D-Shot steps just a little bit too far into the range of the engage of the enemy team, that's how you give teams openings. And I think Omega Gaming Hydra recognizes that. They've gotten themselves the Chemtech Soul. They've brought this about 8,000 gold lead down to under 4. This is like a 3,500 gold lead. That was a massive swing, to be quite honest with you. And we're now, you know, we're talking about a composition that we've discussed all game as being a late game composition. Jax, Cho'Gath, Azir, Sivir, right? Like, given the opportunity, they can come back. They can rush you in team fights, right? Yuri can do so much on her own, being 8-1 and 8. Mel, likewise, right? But there's a point at which Xin Zhao can only do so much, right? Lulu, when tanking 4 players worth of damage, can't do anything, right? And Shen caught out, isn't going to do anything either. And Solo Mason, yeah. Solo Mason just flexing.
Not afraid of the Rel, who is rocking Heal and Ignite right now with the spellbook, and maybe feels confident enough to walk up for an engage here. Still going to be a lot of scrapping mid lane. There's no one in the bot side for Laughing Cloud, so Dwango is just unanswered, hitting that bot turret, which is going to be a nice injection of gold for this Cho'Gath, who also is up 60 CS now over the Shen, and that is now turning that has turned into a full item advantage for the Cho'Gath at long last. And
yeah, finally.
Baron spawning in 10 seconds. Laughing Clouds is more grouped in the area, but it could be anyone's fight. It really just depends who makes the first move, who makes the first engage or blunder, you know.
Cruelty got hit by Wimbercon's lightning, and Notoriety realized in a bad spot, uses that audacious charge over to the blue buff just to get to safety. Nothing yet, potatoes.
Nothing yet. It looked like there could have been a fight breaking out there, but yeah, it's just the teams are just going to be dancing around for a while. And if you're Omega Gaming, you're pretty happy with that because they are continuing to catch up in these items and you know, close the gold lead. You know, the difference from being like 3 versus 2 items to 5 versus 4 items is like pretty significant. Even though Laughing Clouds does have the edge on some of their carries, it means a lot less than it used to.
Yeah, and to be quite honest with you, a Jax with Sterix, Sundered Sky, Triforce, as well as Tabby's, Steel Caps, they changed the name on that item a while ago, into a Xin Zhao with Cleaver, Sundered, Sterix. Like, the Jax wins. It's, you know, I mean, granted, Jax doesn't have level 16 ultimate, but, I mean, Jax with these same items as the Xin Zhao, Jax always wins that. Uh-oh, Mockingbird in a little bit of trouble. Emperor's Divide can be used, but the Counter-Strike is what's going to land after the Defense Flash is used. But Notoriety saying, oh, we're going on to red and blue, and Paneer taken virtually out of the game in an instant. But Counter-Strike landed on Notoriety. Crescent Guard is going to be used to separate this Jax from the rest of the team. But here come the reinforcements. Cruelty is able to use that leap trick to get out of the way. Dwango is now here in case we need to play defense. We got a 1-for-1 trade. That is Paneer for Mockingbird.
The health are nicely in favor of Laughing Clouds' members. I'm kind of surprised they don't go for the Baron there. Instead, they're going to march it down mid lane, try to threaten this inhibitor, but they lose the top side the top lane inner turret. Chunky Monkey not able to stop the reset from the Cho'Gath, so it might be a re-engage in mid lane.
Oh, Polymorph used on this Cho'Gath, who was immediately taken quite, excuse me, not Cho'Gath as well, immediately taken quite low. Now there are 4 members. That teleport is used by Chunky Monkey, doesn't have the stands united. So it's just going to bring the reinforcements via that TP, but 4 members show up for the side of Omega Gaming, who have clawed their way back into a fightable position in this game. And that inhibitor is going to stay alive. We've got 1 minute on this Elder Dragon, Potatoes. This one's going to be big.
It's going to be another angle for a game-deciding fight. Because Laughing Clouds has a lot of vision around the Baron, but they don't have much down in the bottom side, where Omega Gaming has set up several control wards that are going to make the approach much harder for the blue team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to see what their response is. They know they cannot lose this Elder Dragon, right? If there's an opportunity, and excuse me, before I can get it off, Notoriety caught in a weird spot, uses that Crescent Guard defensively, is going to eat some stuns, but is going to be able to get taken to safety by the rest of Laughing Clouds. And before this fighting keeps happening, I might not have a second here, actually. We might jump right back into it, as both teams are going to be vying for mid lane priority. But Omega Gaming is going to walk back into this river. But to my point before, if there's anything that is going to mean that Omega Gaming can absolutely win this game, it's Elder Dragon. They were down and out for the count, to be quite honest with you. And this was going to be a really hard game for them to win. But Elder Dragon is going to change everything on top of this.
And it's
already in a good position to take it. Cho'Gath that feast. That's Elder Dragon. Laughing Clouds is now on the run, but a huge root is going to... Oh, we're not going to talk about that one. Mockingbird mocking Professor with the unfortunate... Oh, no. A lot of damage stopped, but not enough. Elder Dragon just cleans that Mel up. That is 55 seconds of a dead Mel. Baron's up. This might be a Potatoes.
This might be the chain of events that sets the end of the game in motion. It's still not over yet. They're going to have to take a reset because these health bars are a little low. You know, it's going to give Laughing Cloud some time to clear out the waves. You know, the Elder Dragon buff doesn't last super long. It's already a quarter of the way done, it looks like. So they're going to need to push the tempo a little bit more if they want to win the game here, but they have the tools to do it.
They do, absolutely do. And I think just by nature of the way that they are playing and the confidence that they are exhibiting, I think Omega knows that they can absolutely win this game. I think this is, you know, one of those comeback games that you might not have thought possible. Frankly, I didn't know if it was possible either halfway through this game, but they're able to bide enough time for this composition to really come online. And we're starting to lose answers in just Amel, who is now 7-4-7. And Azeri, who, you know, Zeri can deal damage, but if Shen doesn't have the right angle for that ult, if Crescent Guard has to get used defensively and Notoriety has to get Wild Growth healed flash out just to make sure the Xin Zhao doesn't drop, or all of a sudden we're using all of our tools. Jeez, what a big W from Zeri.
That was a lot of damage.
Shock laser.
Yeah, you'd think that Laughing Clouds had the Elder Dragon, because that was just an orbital nuke through the tower, getting so much damage down. And there is a lot of wave clear on the side of Laughing Clouds as well. The Mel and the Zeri both really good at stalling these waves out. So if Omega Gaming doesn't commit to a play, their Laughing Clouds might just be able to stall until at least one of these big buffs is gone, and then look for the fight.
Yeah, they're sort of running out of time to just hard engage a fight. Laughing Clouds, understandably playing very respectfully, does not want to take a fight out in the open rift, where, you know, they can freely sort of just engage this fight. Red v Blue is also taking pretty low, about half health. So is Paneer. Mockingbird getting these shields to stay healthy. Rupture goes in, though, and there's the engage. Notoriety immediately taken down to about half, but a lot of damage being returned onto Omega. And they're just going to have to walk it out. Is this Elder, if I'm not mistaken, is running out quickly?
It's gone, I think. And the waves cleared out. There's only a minute left on Baron, and several people from Omega Gaming Hydra are having to reset. So Laughing Clouds weathers the storm a great job by them. I mean, yeah, and Mockingbird's got the flash up now as well. I think in the last two fights, it was really Mockingbird getting caught out without the flash up that decided things. Now that that's back up, this Mel can be very slippery. You know, if she can flash away from the initial engage, keep throwing those E's and Q's back, and stack up the passive into the ultimate, that's going to be a lot of damage. So yeah, with all these summoner spells back up, almost every summoner spell in the game actually now up for both teams. I mean, it's going to be an all-out brawl to decide things in the next minute or so here, or maybe not.
The ability to stack overwhelm, right, by having a defensive ability, right, both your teammates' defensive abilities, not being blown out for getting caught out, right, but as well as having your flash up, absolutely overwhelm can change the tide of any one of these fights. We're getting to the point though where I almost would love to see a Zhonya's on this Mel, right, by that much more time. I don't think we've seen a Seeker's Arm Guard yet from Mel, and it's getting to the point where, you know, you got to wonder, would that have been more valuable, maybe slightly earlier? But we'll have to see. His mid lane turret is getting taken very, very low. There is no more Baron left, notably, though, on the side of Mega Gaming Hydra, as well as the Elder Dragon. So we'll see what happens here.
They're not really able to sync up their waves. They're kind of crashing just one wave at a time. And right now, the biggest threat, I think, for Omega Gaming is this Azir. We saw Mockingbird have to run back to base. Solo Mason also kind of getting bullied off the wave because these Sand Soldiers can deal so much damage from so much range. And I think Laughing Clouds is just slowly losing their base and might have to take an engage sooner or later, lest they continue to bleed out.
Yeah, I'm almost, and I don't mean this in a negative way per se, I'm almost unimpressed with the Elder Baron play out of Omega, right? But I'm almost equally as unimpressed with, like, just, we're letting our turret just get chunked and chunked and chunked wave after wave. But here's the engage, Notoriety, taking Panir down to about half, but it isn't going to be quite be enough. Red V Blue not taking down to half, but Notoriety absolutely getting ripped, is not going to stay alive. Red V Blue flashing out defensively. Dwango now taking very low. Panir taking very low. Are we just going to have to be okay with one kill? Yes, we are. Omega Gaming gets one kill at the cost of a lot of health bars, Potatoes.
And the Elder is coming back up in 1 minute. Baron Nashor also up in a minute and a half. And we might see a repeat of what happened earlier with at least one of these teams picking up both of those objectives. And, you know, I keep saying game deciding fight, but surely whatever happens
one of them
around that Elder is going to decide the game, because I think whoever gets one objective is going to get the other. I don't anticipate these teams just trading across map. I think neither team is going to want to give up either one. And yeah, the tempo on the map and the vision that Omega Gaming Hydra has set up around these objectives might give them the edge, alongside that soul that they've had a good while now.
By the way, unbeknownst to me, at some point in the last 5 minutes, which, by the way, we just watched 5 minutes of a team just standing in lane, like at that inhib turret. Omega Gaming Hydra, for the first time, basically all game, is ahead in gold. They have Dragon Soul, as well as a gold lead, which, you know, on paper means they're in the driver's seat. And I think just by positioning, right, by nature of the positioning on this Elder Dragon, as it just has spawned, that seems pretty clear. I think they're a little bit more comfortable. They are the ones holding priority, but abilities used. Magnet Strong going to hold a few in the front. Pressing Guard can't be used until late because Xin Zhao is silenced. A big stun on the 3 members in the backline. Mel is going to drop. That's the key member. Shen is going to drop another key ultimate. Cruelty is going ham bone on this Jax in the backline, and that is an ace. And they are going to look to push for the end. Omega Gaming Hydra in the base of Laughing Clouds, and nobody left to stop it, Potatoes. And this might be a 2-0.
Looks like it's going to be a 2-0. Once again, Laughing Clouds, I think, playing really well as Notoriety has left the game. It's actually taking them a while to end because they don't have the wave, but it surely will be over in just a few seconds here. As yeah, I mean, it was really well fought by Laughing Clouds. I thought they had it for most of the game, but just one fight gives so many shutdowns back over to Omega Gaming Hydra, and they run with it. They hit the scaling comp, they hit those full builds. You saw how much damage they can do, how much damage they can absorb, and they don't even need the Elder and Baron to win because they just win those fights so hard. It's a 2-0 for Omega Gaming Hydra when all is said and done.
Yeah, you know, first off, props to Omega Gaming Hydra for making that comeback, that turnaround. I hate to say it, but I gotta acknowledge it. Just by nature of watching the who left the game before the Nexus dropped, you can tell who won that mental battle, right? Outside of just bearing down and weathering the storm through what was a very hard game to win for Omega Gaming Hydra. Right, like look at the Zeri Mel damage. That's nuts, right? That's absolutely nothing to be scoffed at, right? And with that quantity of a gold lead and that positioning, Laughing Clouds for sure seemed to be the victor for a long time there. However, you know, it ain't over till it's over, right? Omega Gaming Hydra knew that, and they hunkered down. They had a really late game scaling team, right? They fell victim to having too much scaling early, But Laughing Clouds fell victim to, I think, not having the right tools and the right approach to be able to close when they needed to, right? Closing games out is a skill in its own right. And sometimes if you're not honed in on that skill, you get outcomes like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the mental resilience really from the side of Omega Gaming Hydra that gives them the win here because that was some of those fights for a while were looking pretty frustrating from the side of Omega Gaming. Like they would find what looked to be a good pick onto Notoriety or someone else, and they just wouldn't die with the Crescent Guard, with all the healing and shielding from the Lulu, with the Stand United. But as it got later into the game, those tools stop being as relevant because the Jax now is able to just chunk through the Xin Zhao's health bar. Azir can kill anyone in just a matter of seconds, and they've got the stronger engage tools as well. So yes, it's just that one little series of mistakes after the push from Laughing Clouds, giving over all those shutdowns, I think is really what broke the game open and led Omega Gaming back to the driver's seat there.
Absolutely. I do have to agree with you there. Regardless, I think that was a well-fought game by both teams. Certainly back and forth, I think, both games. I think game 2 was a less back and forth overall, but a huger swing in terms of just one team winning very handedly to the other team winning incredibly handedly. So what that takes us to, if I'm not mistaken, is Laughing Clouds now 3-3 in their division. Omega Gaming now 4-2 in their division. This series means that heading into the final week, Omega Gaming Hydra feels very, very comfortable about their seeding heading into playoffs. I believe that might be at least second or third guaranteed for them in their group. And what this means for Laughing Clouds is next week it's got to be a win if we want to feel absolutely comfortable heading into playoffs with a guaranteed playoff spot, right? A lot of teams sitting at 3-2 this week or 2-3 this week heading into week 6, which means every win and every loss matters that much more if you are 2-3 or 3-2. So absolutely nothing to knock them out of playoff contention by any means. Both teams played very well, but week 7 is the only one remaining here in the regular season. Very excited to see what happens, how this all unfolds, and I believe for at least you and me, correct me if I'm wrong, that's all we got for regular season, and I believe we'll be seeing all of you guys in playoffs the next time you see myself and Potatoes.
Not in Vanquisher
Potatoes.
though.
Whoa, can you
What
guys hear
happened to
me?
his camera? Yeah, I can
What
hear
happened
you.
to my? I'm frozen. Because I'm frozen. Do you wanna make a cool plug?
A cool plug. Wait, what am I plugging here? What do we got?
The
I'm getting
merch!
the merch.
Everybody, you've probably seen me wear it a handful of times. I got a cool pullover. I got a cool hat. I got a cool shirt. Titan Esports merch. Head on over to FOFesports.com/Titan. They've got awesome stuff on there. You can actually get a shirt with all of the Titan Esports players for this split. That is across, I believe, every league. In the formation of the Titan Esports logo, that has my name on it, Swifty. That has Freedom Potatoes' name on it. And there's a ton of other cool stuff: koozies, shirts, jerseys, you name it. It's there. It's all awesome. And it supports a very, very cool organization and tournament like this one that provides all this cool stuff to all our players, our audience, myself as a caster, broadcast team, yada yada. Check it out. It's awesome. I think it's cool. I think you should go buy some stuff. But anyway, without further ado, I'm curious if my camera. Can we go back? Can I see my camera? Is it still frozen?
You're normal now.
I'm normal now. Without further ado, thank you again for tuning into this week to Titan Esports Conqueror. My name is Swifty. That is Freedom Potatoes. We'll see y'all in week 7 and then in playoffs.